Yeah, you're good now. You froze for a second, though, at least on my screen. Maybe it was just me.
Is that you with a ticking clock, Marty, in your office?
Hey everybody.
Yeah.
Hey everybody, welcome to Growing with Fishes podcast, episode 117. With an old school intro. Me and Marty used to always fuck up the intros. That was classic.
I blame Josh for that one.
No, you can blame me for whatever reason my end is lagging.
Used to. It sounds like you still do.
Yeah.
Hey, you're flying the wall. Get out of here.
Are we live?
See if I can figure out what the hell's causing that on my end. In the meantime, thanks everybody for watching. It's great to be back after another year. What is this, Marty? This is the third or fourth year? We started this in 2015, I think, right? In March or February.
And I smoke way too much weed to remember that.
I can look that up. But anyways, it's been quite a couple of years now. It's been really awesome. Have this whole community.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let me see if I can check my YouTube channel.
I'll look it up while we're chatting. So this week we decided I tried really hard to get us a guest. We actually had two people that were gonna hopefully be on the show that had to reschedule last minute, and we're actually gonna get we got a couple of cool people in the queue. We have the guy from Vortex Brewers who's gonna be on the show with us soon. We have Joshua. Next week, actually, you know what? Next week you're gonna definitely want to tune in. There's gonna be a lot of really awesome guests. But we're going to keep it a secret, I think, at least for now. We're going to have a whole bunch of people from the Science of Regenerative Organic Cannabis Conference, a bunch of the different speakers. So if you're looking to find out more, it'll be a really great episode. In fact, Josh, do you want to tell everybody about that real quick?
Yeah, we're gonna be setting up for the conference in Vancouver. That's next a week from tomorrow. It starts 9 a.m. So. Yeah, so we'll be up in Vancouver. We got a house rented, and we'll have a handful of folks that are coming in to be speaking the next day. So if you could track it down, if you followed through the website and looked at the schedule and saw what was going on, you could see who was going to be around. Yeah, and then we'll have some breeders hanging out in the house, and it's going to be a blast. So I'm really excited. Yeah. If you guys know peeps in Vancouver, you should get the word out, because we're actually right across the street from the Lift Conference, which is the very largest cannabis convention up in Canada. But it's like, a real big time, a lot of suits, kind of a lot different than what we do. We're just doing a small educational thing. So we kind of planned it to be close by so that folks could bounce over if they happen to be in town for the Lift. So night sessions will be opened up too. If you want to just come for the night sessions, you could do that on Friday night. We're hoping to have a hash session. Waiting for confirmation on that. And then Saturday night will be a Dampier Farmers panel. And Sunday morning, we're going to do a growers panel with Joshua Steensland. As an indoor no-till gardener, myself as a greenhouse no-till gardener, and my neighbor, so to say, Mount Baker Highway, Kenny, who is a full-term no-till gardener. So be kind of good just to rap about the different perspectives and how we, attack things differently. And that's also the day that we're right after that, we'll lead into a talk on genetics. So it'll be a really good segue, because we'll be mostly talking about the different genetics we use in those systems, So yeah, well, I'm really excited.
You want to tell people about the speakers for those last minute that are up in Vancouver or nearby, or in Washington or Oregon that might want to shoot up to this?
Yeah, if you are anywhere near, please come. We have on Friday Leighton Morrison, who organizes the conference with me, and Dr. Elaine Ingham, soilfoodweb.com. Chip Osborne talks about soil chemistry. Yeah, it's really interesting. It's soil testing. And then Steve is going to come and talk about greenhouse design and aquaponics. And then, like I said, we'll have a hash evening, hash event evening on Friday night. We're kind of working at the details on that. That's why I'm being vague. And then Saturday morning, we go into biostimulants with Chris Trump, who does Korean natural farming, and Dr. Robert Faust from BioAg, who is a fulvic acid and humic acid guy. Then in the afternoon, we switch to Suzanne Wainwright Evans, the bug lady. She talks about IPM using beneficial insects. A lot of people try to cover that topic, but she brings a different perspective on the whole thing, and she kind of teaches like how we're all messing it up, and when I was using beneficials a couple of years ago, I wasn't having success rate, but it was mostly because I was buying the wrong bugs and applying them incorrectly. And I still see so many people, they'll be buying the right bugs, but they're applying them incorrectly and sourcing them incorrectly. And so her talk is really powerful. And then later on that afternoon will be Josh and Kelly from Dragonfly Earth Medicine. And they've been up farming we've had them on the show a couple of times, but they've been farming up in northern Canada for the last 20 years in full term, outdoor, in hoop houses, Walpini type designs. It's very impressive what they do. That's just the tip of the iceberg on what they do. They get into a whole slew of stuff. They make biostimulants, nutrients, in form of tea brews that they sell. They also make a bunch of healing products too that are like cannabis and fungus based that are really interesting. So yeah, and then we'll do a Dempure Farmers Panel, which is their thing, Dragonfly Earth Medicine, certified farmers. So that's really, really exciting. And then Saturday, like I said, we'll have the growers panel, and then we'll move into genetics. Kevin Jodry will kind of organize that whole event, and we'll have a handful of breeders. We haven't announced them all yet, but I do know that Kaya from Pacific Northwest Roots will be there, and Chimera will be there. So we'll have a couple more guys, maybe girls, and it's going to be really exciting. We'll also have a seed swap, a genetic swap during the lunchtime portion. So bring your monies, bring your seeds, and yeah, be looking to hook up from folks, and bring stuff if you got stuff to share, please. So yeah, and you can find any more information and buy tickets at regenerativeorganiccannabis.com.
Yeah, so hint, some of those guests might be, or speakers might be guests on the show next week. So you'll definitely want to tune in for next week. It'll be a good one for sure. Yeah, so that's always a big blast. I know last year I got the pleasure of talking. Leighton and Josh invited me over to speak at that conference, and I learned more at that conference last year than I did in probably the previous 5 years worth of going to conferences. It was just cooked down in a way that was, very applicable to real world application in a farm. Not just trying to preach on the ideology or on a specific way of doing things. Actually, like, here's what works on a commercial scale on my farm with, my 400 plants or my 800 plants or whatever. And here's how it breaks down. And this is why it's more cost effective. And this is why it makes more sense, economically and environmentally. And, especially when you're going for licensing, we're going to talk about licensing and everything else in the state of the industry. If you're doing aquaponics or sustainable soil or no-till, that's going to get you a lot better chances of getting your stuff passed than a guy doing, all indoor, dumping chemicals down the drain, making it a problem for the water department. You know what I mean? So you're going to win against them every single time when you go up against the city council. And that's another big advantage to aquaponics, especially when it comes to licensing, which is kind of 2/3 of the battle of actually just getting opened, is just getting through the licensing process. It really is 75% of the, 60 to 75% of the battle of Lord knows Marty and I have gone up that fucking hill.
Yes.
So, and I know Josh has as well with his struggles. So, But we thought last year, at the beginning of 2018, we did a kind of an episode on what the state of the industry was in, what was legalized, what wasn't, how many states were, and what states were looking to legalize that year. And I thought we'd kind of do that again, kind of talk about what's kind of happened this last year, especially, it's kind of, the West Coast has kind of imploded, with the exception of Nevada, really. Because they actually managed to do things, with the exception of the transportation part of it, which was a spectacular screw up. They literally had to declare a state of emergency in order to maintain the flow of spice, or cannabis, as we like to call it. A little bit of a Dune reference, but I thought it'd be fun to do. Anyways, so they ended up making it so the Liquor Control Board would control their distribution and transport of the cannabis products. Well, the liquor control guy.
Anybody else frozen?
Yeah, I lost him too.
All right then.
But I think he was. Are you coming back, Steve?
Am I here?
Yeah,
You are now.
You're back. Oh.
That's about 20 seconds.
Oh, damn. I'm not sure what's causing this. I apologize. Well, I was going to say that Nevada ended up having the liquor control guys do the transportation for the cannabis when they legalized, and they had to declare a state of emergency in order to change the law so that they weren't in control of that anymore, because the liquor guys hired a total of 8 new trucks to transport the entire cannabis industry, which obviously was never going to work. But that was by design, because they were trying to nix their competition. So, it was criminal in other ways. But California completely screwed up on a spectacular scale. They make the shit show in Oregon almost look like an easy cakewalk, because at least they had rules to follow.
Yeah, I mean, similar issues, like where you run into, different counties and different cities inside of those counties having different regulations, and people that opted in and out.
You hear all that should have been happening in California recently about that lab getting busted for faking their test results?
Yeah, but that's really common. Like,
insanely common.
That happens in every legal state. I guarantee that's going on in Colorado. I guarantee you that's going on in Oregon. I guarantee you it's going on in Washington. I guarantee.
Well, no, it's just because they had to recall so much flour. Because
what was the total weight?
A lot.
It was a lot.
Yeah.
I don't remember the exact number, but I remember reacting, similar to how Fish was being like, wow.
That's a lot. Damn!
Yeah.
That's just getting sold on the black market anyway, so they'll probably get twice as much money for it.
Yeah, none of that was destroyed. Like, that's the other thing too. Like, it's ridiculous.
Can you imagine that being your job, though? The guy that just has to burn the perfectly like hundreds of pounds of pot, just gotta dispose of this.
Right.
I just feel bad for all the people who actually passed the test, totally okay. It was a good grower, good facility, but they just chose the wrong lab.
Right.
That's the other part. It's it goes back to the stuff with Guardian, when everyone was thinking they're using the organic spray, and
well, yeah, it was just cinnamon.
Except for some of this product is just fine. It's really just getting recalled because of the lab fuck up. At least Guardian, they really needed to pull that stuff because people were smoking shit that they shouldn't have been. But, a lot of what they recalled from the lab was, just because of poor testing practices. So, I don't know. It's a fuck situation. Obviously they should recall it, and the lab is fucked for doing it. But just like Steve was saying, they are definitely not the first lab to pad their numbers for monetary reasons.
Hey, your shit's testing at 38%, bro.
Yeah.
Record.
Right. and when you're paying attention, even just walking around a dispensary, well, not so much anymore because you don't have to do that anymore. But back when we had actual, regulation with a purpose in the medical market, you used to, before legalization, you used to have your lab results posted with anything that you had on the floor. like it just had to be there so you could go and look at it. And so, you're looking over the numbers, you start adding up, their THC content or their, like their total THC, and like some of the lab results, you're like, ooh, that's a little more than 100% there, like how did, I'm not an expert mathematician, but I'm pretty sure all of those are supposed to add up to not 111%.
Well, what if it gave it that extra effort?
Yeah, right? Like, just that much more. So, it's happened on so many different places where, like, when it's just poor lab practices, I feel like that's different than, somebody using pesticides or something that, like, or mold, going to a patient. That's a, really big issue for people that, like, cancer patients whose immune systems are already, compromised.
Oh, it's not PM. That's powdery trichomes.
Oh yeah.
SPT.
Oh, I had a guy in Cali show me 3 pounds that were covered in PM and tell me that they were like the nicest stuff he's seen, and it was 100% serious. And it smelled like a boys' high school locker room.
Spent a lot of time in those.
This is the tops. This is the best stuff. And in San Diego, man, the stupid shit you see is just ridiculous.
Yeah. So
what they'll do nowadays is they'll take that shit, they'll give it a quick peroxide dip if they're an unscrupulous company, and then they'll spray it with terpenes, and then they'll sell it as like fucking lemon or citrus XYZ.
What's his name? Jorge Cervantes. He fucking said on one of his YouTube videos, "Oh, if you have PM, just do this hydrogen peroxide dip like this."
Yep.
Yeah.
I was like, "No, that's cool."
Yeah.
Make sure I don't get PM.
I would not.
The best is when the product salesman is like, "Okay, I know that you can use this product instead of doing your hydrogen peroxide dunk." And I just look at him like, instead? Like what? Like,
or what about the best one still? And I know that Josh ran into this guy at Emerald, the guy that's out there selling like a Milkway spray to cure your plants in whatever, like 24 hours.
Oh yeah, I think. Did you do a video on that?
No, I was talking about
or did we just talk about it? I don't remember.
Talked about it, yeah.
I don't think I ran into that, but we probably shouldn't talk shit about it.
I'm not talking shit. I'm just saying, like, I wouldn't do that. I don't want to smoke that. Like, it's a protein. I don't want to smoke.
I think maybe you sent me the link or something. Maybe I just looked it up because we talked about it. But there's like no information about what it actually is. You're like, here, spray this shit on there, and
the guy, they were being a little
the next day.
Proprietary information, Marty.
They were being more forthcoming at Emerald because everyone was grilling the hell out of them, and they were like, "Yeah, it's a whey made from milk whey."
So it's lactobacillus.
Yeah, it's lactobacillus.
Right.
But how that's curing the plant quickly, I don't know.
And KNF guys actually talk about that, and I think that they're potentially not the most cannabis experienced KNF guys.
I wouldn't do it on plant. Like, I would never spray trichomes with that. Like, you're putting a protein onto your plant material that you're then going to combust, and proteins will denature into VOCs, and that's not good for you. Like, just straight up, So I don't know, something that I thought was strange. But there's all kinds of funky things you see in the cannabis industry. The best ones are the magnetic things, the magnetic, harmony wave frequency things. Have you guys seen those in the grow stores?
Oh, is that like the one you're supposed to like put it in your water or something like that?
No, I think it's the one for like pest control where the sound frequencies and the harmonic vibrations make them stay away.
Huh.
It doesn't work with the rats in my woodshed.
Is the speaking of which, is the special water lady coming to the conference still?
No.
Okay.
I
was looking forward to seeing.
There's commercial shit of that available.
Yeah.
I saw through that. It's a pyramid scheme shit. Basically, it's a.
No. I didn't think it actually. I was just curious to see what they were. There's so many.
I would have loved to see them try to prove it and completely fail. Like that's what I like. I hope they would show up just to do that. But I understand why they're not going to show up, but it would have been hilarious. Like you have to admit, like.
Well, and that's it. There's a lot of things, and especially, and I'm glad we're talking about this kind of stuff because there's a lot of this kind of stuff out there, and people will go online and read, or see a cool, nifty video or whatever, and buy into some of the stuff, or the water spinners that spin the water to equalize their pH, and it's like there's zero reason why spinning the water in a copper pipe or a metal pipe is going to change the pH of the water. That's not how chemistry works.
Well, actually, Steve, I mean, it's kind of like along the same lines of if you put the word peace on your water bottle, it's going to change the water molecules design.
It's now smart water. It's smarter than your normal dumb water. You're still using the dumb water. That's the problem.
Yeah, no, that's true. I got to start making sure I only buy alkaline water because I just feel so acidic lately. Jesus Christ! Here, drink this water. It'll cure your cancer. Holy shit!
No, but there's and this is the reason why you got to be careful. There was I just heard a quote for someone. I'll leave out company names. Anyways, I'll leave out company names to protect who told me this. But Medicine Man is quoting people at $500,000 for a 5,000 square foot build out with SOPs. Like, the fuck? Like, this is crazy. Like, there's all these companies out there just ripping people off left and right. And yeah, sure, they have some established stuff, but $500K for a 5,000 square foot place that's already built? That's insane.
I think my takeaway from what you just said, Steve, was I'm going to leave out company names, but Medicine Man is doing this.
Glad you got the joke.
All right, cool. As long as we're not talking about him.
But it's just some of this stuff is just crazy. Like the amount people are trying to like gouge these newer people coming into the market. It's just insane. And that's why we try to bring on really good people onto the podcast that can drop knowledge, like Spectrum King, or Dr. Faust, or Dr. Efron, or Dr. Lane Ingham, or Jeff Levin, or shut up. Anyways, are some of these other guys onto the show to actually tell you, here's the education, and now when you go talk to these other people, now you're informed enough to make the right decisions, and you aren't being run in circles, and you aren't being ripped off and stuff like that. So, and if you are, and actually, so let's talk about to circle around on that. Let's talk about people getting into legalization. There's a couple of states that look like they're going to legalize this year. I have them open up. Okay, so you got Rhode Island. It's got a pretty good shot of legalizing this year. Minnesota, New Hampshire both have a shot at legalizing this year. Sorry about the chirps. Turn my damn phone off. New York and New Jersey, Illinois and Connecticut would be the other states that have a good chance of legalizing. So that's quite a few new ones. And when I sat down and I was actually looking at how many states are legalized, I didn't realize it's basically the entire Northeast is medical or rec now. And by the end of the year, it looks like most of the Northeastern United States, the entire West Coast, and a good portion of the Midwest will be legalized. So, if you look back and you think about, how far we were even in 2012 when, I can remember, almost, being emotional on the day they passed this stuff for Oregon Washington and Colorado, that and now we have almost a quarter of the country by the end of the year is going to be fully legalized, and if you're basing it on population, it's almost over half the country.
So we can sort of pool. Who do you think is going to be the last state to pull their head out of their ass?
For rec, Utah,
Oklahoma,
Texas.
Oklahoma's going to legalize this year, and Texas is going to legalize this year in some form, probably.
Interesting.
So, but I could see Mississippi or Alabama being pretty far down the list too.
Boise, Idaho will be very last on the list.
Idaho, that's a good choice.
Yeah, Idaho would be another good option.
You could be white. I mean, right?
But
Yeah,
so
that's
for legalized states, at least currently as of this podcast, which is beginning of January 3rd of 2019, you got Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Colorado, Michigan, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Maine all legalized. And Maine actually is going to get actual legalization now that their dipshit governor is replaced. What was his name? The whack job, LePerrier. No, that's a hockey player. Whatever, LePage. That's his name, LePage. Anyways, he blocked legalization and refused to allow the permit issuances and stuff like that. So the new Democratic governor is going to come in and actually fix that, which would be really great for all you guys. And and that's another thing I want to bring up is that just because these places have medical or recreational doesn't mean anything's happened. I mean, look at Missouri or Illinois. Oh, Illinois has a decent amount, but look at Missouri or Nebraska. I'm sorry, not Nebraska. North Dakota or West Virginia. Some of these other places that haven't really followed through with their actual bills to follow. They have medical pass, but there's no dispensaries. They're not getting to patients. It's just kind of in name only, and it's so restrictive that it's not helping 80% of the people that actually need it. Yes, it's helping those that are end of life, but there's a lot more people that need cannabis medicine than just those at end of life.
Well, I want to say something actually, because I've been in contact with Dummy, who's in Maine, and they haven't really had. It's been kind of weird because they had medical marijuana, which was running great, and he had no problem running that. And he actually openly is able to have a business with that. So even with the recreational, I'm not sure what you were saying about Maine, but they haven't had that. It hadn't been that stifled. They've actually been able to function more than what you let on. I just wanted to say that because I've actually talked to a guy that's in Maine, and he actually able to function. But it's like everything else. Most of the states, they start out, and I think everybody here can attest to that. We found that it starts out one way and it's constantly changing and evolving, and they really don't know what the hell to do with it when they do legalize it. They generally legalize it before, whether it be medical or recreational, before they actually have a concept of the logistics and how they're going to run it. Isn't that true?
For which state?
Any state. Every one of them's been a clusterfuck,
Oh, yeah. And what's ridiculous? So I just helped a friend of mine, talking to a friend of mine, and helped him with his permit in Tennessee to grow hemp. And it's, I think, 3 pages.
Yeah. What's the agricultural community in the Southeast? Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina. Hemp is an agricultural commodity instead of a medical commodity, and that's why.
Yeah, Oklahoma, which is 14 or 18 pages. That's another one that's, I don't know, it's a little bit more than that. Not much more. Totally reasonable, low prices. Although the downside is, I was just reading yesterday, there's 30,000 applications in the state of Oklahoma. So there's quite a few cannabis-related businesses, and almost all, most of them are applying for 4 full verticals, so they can do both cultivation and extraction with the same license, which is super freaking cool. Or the same set of licenses, whatever it is, which is kind of neat. And then you have what are some of the other states that are coming online right now? Michigan, which is kind of a clusterfuck right now. What else? You got Canada, which is about to go through their second round of laws regarding edibles and extractions here before too long.
If they don't open something up, everybody's going to lose their ass. There's a lot of people invested, thinking everything was going to happen, and what happened? There's no edibles, right? Or nothing you can intake. You can't manufacture anything you can intake. You can only use topicals.
And then you got the other one. The other big crime was the Utah. Them passing that second. They had that emergency session after the bill passed and basically neutered the shit out of the law and usurped the will of the voters and changed the law after the voters voted on it. And it was all thanks to dun, 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 the death cult we've talked about before, the Mormon Church. sorry, if you're screwing with other people's lives and you're not actually helping anyone, that's what you are. And you can be mad at me for saying that. But this is ridiculous. You have a religion. I don't care what your religion is. When your religion gets in the way of people's medicine, that's wrong. I don't care, not being against them in particular, but this is stupid. They have no right to attack people's right to medicine, and that's my problem. And it's 100% sponsored by the church in that state, and it's criminal. It's completely criminal because there's people that are dying and suffering that don't need to be.
In the book of Genesis, for all you Christians out there, the book of Genesis clearly states that that all plants and fish of the sea and everything on the earth were for the use of man. That didn't mean man could make up a law that tells us we can't use a plant just because it supplants what pharmaceutical companies or pulp and paper companies or oil companies might want to do.
Yep. So, anyways, I know I'm a little bit strong feeling on that, but I get really angry when any group, I don't care if it's religious or a social group or a club or, an organization, whatever it is, gets in the way of people's right to live, that's wrong, So, but especially when it's as organized as it is in Utah. And they had no right to do that because that's not what the voters passed. And again, we talk about this all the time, legalization in name only, where they go in and they just regulate out everyone that actually knows what they're doing into a handful of bankers that like Marty. So let's talk about this. And Josh, what's some of the crazy questions you guys have been asked by some of the suits of various types, as far as production? I've had you mean we can't get flour in 2 months? Or, from the time I pay you to start this thing?
Always.
My buddy told me it's 8 weeks. How come it takes longer than 8 weeks? My buddy told me it's 8 weeks. I Googled it, and it's supposed to be 8 weeks, and they've never grown a plant in their lives.
Or what do you mean cannabis is going to be $50 to $100 a pound? You don't know what the hell you're doing. And that was from a. If I told you who that was, your jaws would be on the floor.
Or
it's a very dangerous drug, and you fellas need to watch what you're doing.
Was it Big Mike?
No. This is someone from a big Canadian company who is probably kicking themselves in the face for laughing at me when I told them that a year ago. So, anyways, what are some of the other ones you guys have had?
Just that I don't know. I guess you actually have to pay employees. I don't know if this guy, one guy I was talking with, was just wanted to pay everyone minimum wage and essentially just run everything with minimum wage workers on it was a big project too, with some 8 greenhouses or something like that. He had property that had multiple tax lots, so he was going to max out light depth greenhouses on each tax lot, and he wanted to run this insane number of plants with 4 people, and it, you're and trim and everything, you're and then pay them next to nothing, yeah, it's just no. And in that case, he had a pretty good idea of he didn't have any misconceptions about how long it was going to take or anything. He had actually grown corn, cornfields around here a lot on some of his other pieces of property, and so he was, he had this other one with the multiple tax lots he wanted to set up for cannabis, and so when I presented did a presentation on, how I would, essentially set it up and how many people it would take to run it. And he was pissed, on how much. He's you think we're going to spend this much money and labor and make any money and blah, blah, blah. I was okay. So yeah, he wanted to run it with a quarter of the number of people that I would have ran it with, just based on the number of plants you would have to run. You know, like, can you imagine being completely responsible for everything from seed to harvest in two, I think there were 4,000 square foot greenhouses. Like you yourself were responsible for two of the entire thing.
Only if you expect me to quit pretty quick.
And for minimum wage.
When are they supposed to trim? That's my question.
Oh, that the 4 people were supposed to do it. That's what I'm telling you. Like, this was the guy's plan. Like, because this is how he did corn.
And you're gonna wet trim too.
Yeah, I was like, well, you don't sell corn for the same price per pound that you sell either, you know. So it's like, I don't know. Like, I gave up on the whole thing, honestly. And I never really talked to him again after that. And I don't even know if he did anything. But that was like the fact that you would actually want to pay people was appalling to this guy. And it was just like, wow, okay then. Good luck, buddy. Have fun. Never heard from him again. But that was pretty outrageous.
You got any, Josh? Or Fish? You got a little bit of experience. I know you tried to get thing off in Sacramento.
Yeah, fuck that place. That was a while ago, but yeah, my relative and I, we probably lost like 30,000, like invested in trying to get something going when we discovered the city was trying to push to have it. So just to renew your conditional use permit in the city of Sacramento, they wanted to charge 50,000 a year just to renew. And I said, well, this is a bust because that's criminal. Yeah. So we're just going to write this off as a massive loss.
Damn.
So yeah, that's that was the dreams getting crushed.
And that's it's so crazy because it varies so much from state to state. You know, like I know Josh and Marty both had to drive pretty hard to actually get their licenses and pay for their stuff. I know you went through your stuff. I know I've gone through 2 or 3 license attempts in California and then ended up throwing my hands up and saying the hell with it because I'm tired of wasting money and time in California. You know, it's just crazy you can't do anything legal there. It's impossible. It doesn't matter what you do. You got this local control bullshit where everything could be fine, and you can have a whole busload of idiots come in and rail against you in front of the city council and get your proposal voted down. And there's no other business to deal with this. So this is the kind of stuff, if you aren't dealing with this and you're in your state, then you're blessed and you should be happy. And I'm happy for you. And I'm glad that other states are not having to go through with that. But there are states that are really suffering right now. Then you have places like Washington and Oregon where the bottom's just fallen out of the market. Like, what are pounds going for on the white and black markets there, Josh and Marty? And Fish.
It goes all over the place. I mean, people get as low as $50 a pound, maybe even lower to $30 a pound, all the way to there's farms that still get to $2,000 or $3,000 a pound. But you have to get that, you have to take a lot into consideration. They're not just pounds like we used to sell. They are the very best nugs in 1 gram packages for $18. And so there's just not that many people buying that sort of shit. It's just a very interesting product. I don't know. I'm like kind of like it's been such a long, horrible ride. Like I've been at this for 4 years, and I'm getting a little bit trying to get. I guess I should say I'm trying to get past the point of like being bitching about it and like trying to figure out what is actually going to work. It's just that's where it is for me. And so I've been setting up as a nursery. I'm trying to do a different thing to like find a niche market, and that's like the advice I would give to anybody in these new states is that like I honestly don't think that very many people are going to be growing weed in 5 years. Very many. That's poor English. I don't think a lot of people will. I think it's going to be similar to high
Corn.
quality heirloom vegetables. And breweries, we're not going to even be there for a few years, because what I've seen in our state is that, like, they're not even open to true craft, small, high quality heirloom cannabis. They just aren't open to it yet, because it takes a lot of work to work with those farmers. And when I used to grow vegetables, like, that was the same thing. There's so many chefs that don't want to work with a guy that just grows tomatoes, because then they have to have just a tomato guy and just a lettuce guy. When U.S. Foods delivers it all, they'll also deliver your cheese and your bread. They'll deliver the flour, everything. You can make one order and it comes on this day, and it's very simple. When you're running a restaurant or whatever, it's a lot of work. So I think it's going to be a long time to work till the market moves all the way around back to that. That's me personally, and a lot of people disagree with that. But if I was in a new state, I would be setting up something ancillary, or I'd be like doing a real farm where you plan to grow vegetables and like animals, and cannabis is a part of it, and you plan to not make that be your cash crop. That the whole thing works together, and that if cannabis fails, that you could still survive. And then that way you can hold it. You can hold integrity, and that's kind of where I'm going with my thing. Is I'm holding out. Like, I grow good quality product, and like, I'm not going to sell it for cheap. And so if I got to do something else to make money, then I'm going to do that until people are in the place to purchase my cannabis for a livable wage. And I think the more farmers need to take that stand, but it's so hard when you get so invested and like you're really stuck. It's like, what are you going to do?
Well, I can look at it. I can say from a South Carolina standpoint, that we're looking at hemp being legalized, right? But we know there's some backdoor shit that the government's pulling on us. But see, I've already had a plan. It's kind of like what you're talking about. Everybody thinks they're going to do hemp and have all the CBD and edibles and stuff. And I'm looking at more like old school, where I want to make textiles. I'd rather set up. One thing I know we can do, if we can get a whole bunch of farmers growing hemp, we could start a new textile business and replace cotton and other things, and get rid of some of the synthetics that we're using that take petroleum. Because let's face it, I believe, I'm not positive, but I'd pretty much bet that rayon and nylon and all that is, probably requires fossil fuels to make, as opposed to where hemp, which is 6 times as strong as cotton, and we already know that hemp seeds can provide fuel and lubricating oils and all kind of stuff. So, I think it's smart for everybody, like you would be like when the lights go off, we're all going to be worried about how to get by, which is where, Josh's regenerative cannabis or regenerative food, or the place where all the nutrients you're feeding your plants are grown by yourself, and you're providing the nutrients from a regenerative aspect. I think that's where it's smart to go, and everybody needs to look forward to that.
Well,
okay, Raj, I don't think we want to revisit the whole concept of lubricating oils from cannabis. If you remember what Tommy was talking about back when, about how it was the greatest sexual lubricant he's ever found.
Yeah, but I was talking about hemp too, not cannabis. But,
okay, well,
I was going to say
it's an uncomfortable subject.
Fish pulled a Tommy on me. Yeah, well, Tommy was a rare bird, so.
He was something.
Honestly, where we are with extraction processes and with farming and the way that CBD laws are getting passed, those are beautiful flowers, whoever's those are. Is that Marty's?
Probably.
Which one? I got slideshows on.
Yeah, those are good looking.
Show off.
I think that 100% that I think I'm right on this, but I think that as the hemp laws / CBD laws get passed, they're just going to change the thresholds. So right now we're at whatever THC threshold of 0.03%. It's not going to be very long, like months to a year, 2 years tops, till those thresholds are changed, and people are growing just like corn. They're going to grow with the same exact machines. They're going to no-till plant that shit in with hemp seeds that are pre-coated in fertilizer, just like they do with corn. And then they're going to extract the CBD, they're going to extract the CBG, they're going to extract the THC, boom, and they'll push it all out to whatever, and they'll make all these products. They'll make the vape pens, they'll make the best tasting vape pens, they'll make the best cookies, the best everything. And then really we'll be down to people that like are actually the people that will be buying, weed that is smokable, that is actually really high quality craft cannabis, will be the same sort of people that get up on a Saturday morning and go to a farmer's market, or that buy from a CSA, or that go to a restaurant that buys farmer sourced foods, where the meat and the vegetables, like, I don't know. I'm pretty passionate about it too, and I feel really doom and gloom about the whole thing. Like I think everybody wants to get their piece and has their dreams, but like, look at tomatoes, look at everything else, and cannabis is a really easy field crop. It really is, and with our extraction technology, and I'm talking mass consumption. I'm not talking you, me, and all of us that are consumers and really, really into it. We're going to be the people that are like microbrewers that brew our own beer, and travel around from microbrewery to microbrewery to taste the fucking beer, and get down on the hops and like all that stuff, and that's cool, and that's its thing. But it's not the mass consumption will be the world consuming cannabis, in their cereal, in their lunch, in their, in their lotions, in their toothpastes. Like, that's where it's going, right?
And their dog and cat treats too.
I just say something. Awesome. Yesterday, Todd Rutherford, Democratic senator in South Carolina, reintroduced the bill for medical marijuana in South Carolina, and that was impressive enough. But what really impressed me was he brought up the fact of something that we have talked about a lot in the last year, that they realize now to actually do the proper thing for medical, for CBD, that you needed that THC to kick it in the ass for certain afflictions. And the fact that he mentioned that right in the press conference over the news, I got to see it. I was blown away, because I've never seen a politician get up there and say that we want to do this because, we need THC to add to the CBD to make the medicine better for certain afflictions and all. So I had to throw that in since you were talking about that. So.
Yeah, we're allowed up to 5% THC in our oils whenever you can even get it at Walmart as long as you have a prescription for it. It has 5% THC.
That's crazy.
Cannot be any more than that.
I didn't realize it was all the way up to 5.
That's actually good, isn't it, Steve? That's what I was thinking. That's a real good thing, because you didn't need a lot of THC, but you needed THC to make it more microbiologically available to your body, right?
Well, yes, but there's other ways to do that too.
Yeah, but
it's been like a year and a half that it's been legal that way in my location.
Wow.
What state are you in again?
Georgia.
So is Georgia about to have a rush like North Carolina did then?
Of course. We're right in Ag Central. I can go 5 miles each way and run into at least 3 buildings.
So what do you guys think is going to happen with CBD this year, with the whole FDA statement at the end of the year that was kind of apocalyptic?
Well, I'm hoping that it's actual CBD and not that shit that they're selling in a lot of these stores that they claim that's 100% CBD and actually don't have hardly dick in it.
Yeah, and that's something that's important. I actually got kicked off of a CBD forum the other day for bringing up the fact that Charlotte's Web is not only one of the worst products on the market if you look at CBD or milligram to $2 spent, but it's also a stolen strain. Like, they didn't even invent that strain. They stole it from somebody else. And the original breeder was just on Dude Grow's show. So, they're not even a legitimate company in terms of, being able to be proud about what they do. Like, sure, they came up with a thing that helped their daughter, and more power to them for that. But they stole that strain. They've profited off of it, and they're ripping people off because of the name. And they actively hire lobbyists to try and only legalize their strains. in places where strains are vastly inferior to most of the other CBD strains on the market now.
And it's one of the worst strains ever.
Yeah, I mean, if Cannatonic is the highest one to date, at least the last time I checked, was Cannatonic was the CBD early last year, at least was the last time I looked it up.
My understanding was that Harlequin was the mother of all these.
Well, so Harlequin is the mother of most of them, but my understanding was that there was 2 separate CBD heavy lineages. Is that wrong?
I mean, I know that there. I don't know. You know,
I know the first one came from
Harlequin, Wade, and then that Cannatonic came off that. And from my understanding, from Cannatonic came AC/DC and Charlotte's Web.
Well, no. Charlotte's Web was W4. They call it Woo4 with shit. What were the other ones? It was Woo4 and something else. But I have the Shirley Temple I gave you that both you and Green Jeans has the. Did I sense? I'm pretty sure I gave some to you. If not, I'll find a way to get some to you. I know Green Jeans has some, as I gave him some when I was down visiting him.
I have some crosses he made.
Okay, yeah, cool. So that actually has 2 of the parent strains of Charlotte's Web in there from the same source breeder in Colorado. That's the same lineage.
There's another one right now that starts with a C. Shit.
Cannabis.
Oh,
it starts with C. Yeah.
I think it's like pink champagne is what you're thinking of, maybe.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
No.
Pink champagne.
There's like a cherry wine also.
Yeah, cherry wine, yeah, or something like that.
But cherry wine is a Harlequin crossed with like a more hemp strain.
Nice.
I don't know. I haven't looked that up, so if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I have no. Just to be clear, I have no fucking idea. That's just a. Pretty sure I've read that somewhere. That's as much credit as I'm taking for that.
I know I have some Harlequin strains. I just haven't tried it.
Don't yell at me in the comment section.
One of the best CBD strains I've grown so far was a Harlequin crossed with Sour Tsunami, and that was like a 12 or 13% THC and like a 22% CBD. It was a really, really hot, super high. Maybe not 22%, maybe it was a little bit lower than that, but it was really, really, really high. That was one of the best ones we had as far as CBD ratio of all the ones we grew doing the aquaponic testing. I'm a little bit fuzzy. I smoked a lot of weed today. I was hanging out with some buddies that were driving through and had a bunch of really good hash. So if I'm a little bit fuzzy brained, I apologize ahead of time.
Lost your mind. Lost your damn mind again.
Yep.
I smoked a lot of weed just all by myself.
Well, me too, because I got nobody else to smoke it with. So yeah, I smoke a lot of weed by myself.
And that's
all day at work, and then came home. So
that's kind of
much for nothing else to do.
To loop things back around to the theme of the show, like that's something else to think about too when you're looking about opening up a newer business is what strains you're going to grow. And you want to make sure you have some good bread and butter strains like Bruce Banner or Blue Dream or what are some of the other ones that you guys like? As far as bread and butter, and by bread and butter I mean heavy, relatively equal, heavier yielding, relatively resistant, and not super complicated to grow. There aren't a ton of ludicrous.
White Widow.
I would say Widows are good. I would say like Agent Orange,
AK-47s.
AK-47, sure.
Jack Herrera.
Yeah.
Jack Herrera's got a pretty high, doesn't it, Mr. Green Jeans? It has a pretty high CBD content. A lower THC, but more of a no.
I have no idea. I wouldn't know. But I mean, it's easy to grow. It's it's a big sativa that yields a lot. It's easy to grow.
Yeah.
Finishes pretty quick for a sativa. Easy to grow. Did I
I have
mention?
lots of flower sites, so usually you can yield pretty well off of it.
A lot
Yeah.
of people like Super Silver Haze that I know of, and of course Agent Orange was mentioned, and we all know about Blue Dream and AK-47. They've been, the big producer for cash crops for a long time.
Super Skunk's another one.
I like, and again, I tell you what, I'm still, I know it's an older. I love Strawberry Kush. I'm telling you, and Orange Bud, just straight Orange Bud, is pretty cool and gives you a nice cerebral feeling. I'm sure that would be great medicinally. Nice, tight, smaller nuggets is what I got out of it. Really tight nuggets, and I don't know. And again, our company's got a strain called Gold Leaf, which is supposed to be in the 25 club. So that would be, and everybody, I think Hogmaster's on here. I think I saw him on here tonight, and he's grown it. But the reason I ever got it was because I'm more into the old stuff. Like I finally got some Jack Herrera and some old stuff like that. But I was watching people on the forum growing the Gold Leaf, and every time I saw it, I'd look at the picture and say, "Wow, that's some awesome looking plant." And it was Gold Leaf. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that measures up to some of you guys' favorite strains as we move forward.
I like Sour Strawberry too. Is another one which I think is I'm pretty sure is still in is a Strawberry Kush cross. I remember.
Probably so. Yeah, probably so.
But Sour Strawberry, I've enjoyed growing that. It's relatively easy to grow, and isn't super picky about much. I guess on that same token, like maybe some to avoid that are like, a little more picky, or like some of the OGs can be, kind of like lemon OG, can be really lanky. And not that or even some of the cookie strains and cuts can be really finicky, and
if you're a newer grower,
they will have a tendency to herm, like especially since there's so many feminized seeds that were made. Like especially from like the forum cut and stuff like that, they they can be difficult to run, and maybe just feminized seeds in general. If you're new to growing, I mean, we're having this conversation, about like strains for people to look into, but there's nothing that can really replace like having already grown it, and in the situation you plan on growing it, like you should have some sort of scaled model where you've already ran some test stuff. Hopefully, if you're coming into it having never grown plants, you should probably be concerned about other things other than what strain you're picking.
Good point, Marty. Yeah, you got to learn how to grow first. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you got there, Steve?
I don't know. I mean, I was gonna say, like, we're really encouraging people to pop their own beads and to like get off the clone game, and I think that's like
back up a little bit.
Part of the learning curve, like you and the plant can grow together if you're popping your own seeds and making your own seeds. Like, start with something really good that's like good genetics, and be a little bit smart if you can. Like if you're gonna grow tomatoes, you walk down to the whatever nursery, you ask them, what grows good here. They're not gonna sell you something in Vermont that grows good in Florida. They're gonna sell you Vermont specific varietals. So like we're kind of not in that mindset in cannabis because we've been indoors for the most part, and so like we're really encouraging people just to like get seeds and get them from that are similar to your region and pop them and start working through them.
And you can take your soils to like, and where I'm at, I can take soil samples into the agriculture place and they'll test your soils for $2 or $3 and tell you exactly what's in your soil and what you need in your soils.
Yeah, here it's $6. You can they tell you to go like 3 or 4 places in your garden, take samples up to a certain measurement, and you send it off, and it's like $6 per sample. And they will, yeah, exactly. If you're going to grow in soil in the garden outdoors, yeah, that's a good point. That's a very good point. I love the use of varietals too, Josh, because most people when they're talking about cannabis don't ever use the word varietals, and so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't know. That's just what I've been getting down on in the last couple of years, and learning from these cats that have spend a little bit of time. And man, actually at the Emerald Cup, I smoked some of the most interesting weed from I think it was Moon Gazer. Am I gonna get it wrong? Or Flower Days? I think it was Flower Days. They just put out a regenerative cannabis book, and they had this rose lemonade, and it was really cool. In the Dem Pure tent, everyone was just handing around these like 3-4 gram, big fuckers, doobies, and so you could really taste the flower. It was nice, and then this one came by, and right before it got to me, I said, "What is this?" And I didn't know whose it was, and this girl was like, "Oh, it's a rose lemonade," and I thought, "Oh, that's a weird name for weed." and I took the hit, and I was like, "Holy shit, that tastes exactly like lemonade with rose petals in it." And I just looked at her, and she's like, "Right?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh," and they were like, and then they started talking about it. They got these seeds from these folks who had been cultivating in the hills for a long time and had kept their line really just pure and inbred, and so they started popping them, and they started pulling out all these really crazy flavors, and they were very unique, and they grew well in their area outdoors. These are full-term outdoor growers, growing some fire.
That people forget, like how much you can actually do with just a breeding program, as opposed to like we get all these different varieties of tomatoes and all these other things, and we have all of the really the same tools to apply to that stuff, but for some reason like it seems like people like just get stuck on like particular lines or something. But like when we were talking to Dragonfly and you and Dutch were you guys, Josh, were talking about having seeds being bred in the same area over generations and allowing the seeds to evolve to the environment. It was really kind of like so much farther down the road than what somebody just starting out can do. You know what I mean? Like when we're talking about someone just trying to enter the business, like how would you even like would you just try to approach people that had already been breeding in that area, or what would you recommend, like, or just trying to get seeds from good seeds to start with? Or
well, exactly, that's what I would recommend is, and I mean, I'm not trying to toot what we're doing with the conference, but that's one of the aspect is in each area we're bringing in breeders from that area. So the whole goal of this conference for us is to bring tools and education. I've said it before, we don't do any vendors and sponsors. So, I'm trying not to get sidetracked on your question, but yeah, I think find breeders in your area that have been doing the work that you've been doing or similar, and then, like everyone's got different tastes and flavors that they like, right? So there's a lot of work to do to kind of sift through and find folks out there, that are in your region and maybe have your same style. But when you find it, it's like, holy shit, it's such a step above getting these clones and stuff. Like you were talking about, Marty, saying that some of these cookies and these OG cuts, they're really finicky and hard to grow, and like they don't yield very much, and people just keep growing them because there's this hype around it, right? It's like, but in reality, we can all have amazing weed,
but didn't have to do
within a couple of generations. I just like want to demystify the whole like in quotes breeding thing. Like it really is like just seed saving. Like let's take it down to that level. Like seed saving. There's breeding is like a real intense thing where you're getting real specific, but seed saving is really what we're talking about. And making your own seed. And being a little bit intentional about it to start with. So. If you live like right now, I live on the coast, and so I don't know a lot of folks that are breeding cannabis up in Washington on the coast. But Kaya's doing it just a little bit south of here, so I'm excited to get his gear. But I also like sought out folks in California that were like right on the coast in Santa Cruz you know, that were just in the thick of the humid area, you know, trying to get as similar to my situation as possible. And then working with that. And then, you know, I grow those seeds out and I select from there. And then I cross them with something else that did well, and then go from there and select from there. And, you know,
well, basically, it all goes back to the fact that the plant is so adaptive, and you know, it will adapt to its environment no matter what you put it through. Pretty much, you almost have to try to kill it. And again,
well,
we're between vegetables and cannabis, so I was trying to.
Every one of us has experienced taking a clone in, and after, you know, growing it for 2 or 3 cycles,
right,
that it grows better. And, you know, the question might be, is it that you learned that plant? You know, you learned how to grow that plant, maybe part of it, for sure. But it's also the plant adapted to you. There's a little bit of both, and like, we don't give enough credit to the intelligence of these plants, for sure. That you know, they are real creatures.
And I was thinking too, something that when you're growing different plants, and especially when we're talking about you're doing companion plants, like where you want to grow your own plants in the same environment and then use them for nutrients and all, you also have crossbreeding that I think even would cross possibly. Now, this is something I would have to yield to Steve probably, or maybe you might be able to answer, because Josh, you're a lot smarter than you let on. You know a lot more than you ever let on. You're a very humble kind of guy. But the thing is if you're growing vegetables and cannabis together, I personally feel that, you know, cross-pollination can have an effect on it too. And the fact that it's in your region and the plant's so adaptive, and any plant's adaptive, even if you're growing tomatoes or, like you said, heirlooms, and this is possibly a learning curve too with picking your heirlooms, because again, some of them don't yield shit. You have to cross them with something or put them on a rootstock in order to make heirloom tomato that you love produce more than like 6 tomatoes in a season.
That's a whole thing. That's a whole like light bulb right there. We could have, like, you know, that's something that people have no idea about. People put tomatoes on top of eggplants to grow them in swampy areas. You guys, like, that's where, you know, they actually even sell them from out of catalogs. Territorial Seeds in Oregon, you can buy out of their catalog. What is it called, Roger? When they splice them together,
grafted
tomatoes. You can buy grafted cucumbers, grafted peppers, and it's something that we haven't even touched in cannabis. You know, I've seen people like grafting different strains onto one plant for the purpose of preserving strains, but not for the purpose of putting like a hardy rootstock down, you know, that works in your area, and then putting different varietals on it. Like, that's a whole.
We do have a friend that's been on the show. We have a friend, Donald J. from a moderator on our website. Actually, remember, Steve? He started a plant where he was grafting clones into Mr. Green Jeans. I think we all remember. You know, I don't know if you were on the show back then, but Donald J. was talking about grafting. He was kind of trying to have a plant where he was grafting clones into a stalk. You know, he grew a specific stalk. I think what is that? Where there's like 4, like he did it like grapes. That's the best I can bring up. He kind of wanted to do it like grapes, and as the stalk went out, he was
he did like a fruit cocktail tree with weed.
But anyway, yeah, so we have somebody, and he was successful with the first one, but you know what? We never talk about that. And I actually tried to get him on the show tonight. It's funny. I hope you're listening out there. It was funny. Tonight would have been a perfect time for him to talk about if that succeeded or not, because I think it definitely would succeed, because it just seems to work. And I would not want to think that our beloved cannabis plant would not be able to hold up against other plants in the universe, you know, and do the same thing as a tomato or anything else, you know. So.
But it's really interesting. I mean, what you're talking about is exactly, Steve called it the fruit cocktail. Like, they do that with different fruit trees too, where they'll put
pepper trees.
Varietals.
You can buy a pepper tree with 12 different peppers.
What I'm talking about is growing from seed. So that, you know, look this up. There's some guys on what's the other seed company? They sell a ton of microgreens. I used to buy their seed. They're in Oregon.
Johnny's seed? Oh, Oregon.
Johnny's, exactly. Johnny's.
Johnny's is in Maine or New Hampshire.
Yeah, okay.
They're definitely northeast.
John, if you go to on Johnny's YouTube videos and you search grafting tomato plants.
Yeah.
These videos have been up for a long time.
Right.
What you do is these guys will grow what they'll do with eggplants or different varieties of tomatoes. They'll grow both sets, the rootstock and the top, the fruit plant at the same time. They'll plant the seeds at the same time, and they'll grow them out to third or fourth set of leaves, and then from there they'll totally lop off the rootstock where it's got nothing, and they'll take the top off the top plant that they want to fruit, and they'll graft it right on at this very small, tiny, toothpick stem size.
Yeah, you just take you cut it at a 45, you make a little T on the rootstock, you stick it in there, put a little clip on it, and hold it down, and put it, and then set it in the dark for a couple of weeks, and it roots.
Right, but this guy shows it's a really cool video where he shows example. He's running, what a greenhouse full of them. So he's running a couple thousand plants. Where you got 1,000, and it's cool. It's really cool shit.
There's some awesome guys on YouTube too, because that's where I first learned how to do it. And this guy was just a simple farm. In fact, you would have loved him because all he had was straw all over the damn place.
Yeah.
I'm just picking.
I learned to do this when I was doing aquaponics in Minnesota. That's when I was doing with my aquaponic tomatoes. So I ran a quarter of my greenhouse at one point that way, but I didn't get too far deep into it.
Yeah.
Tomatoes are only so cool. I love cannabis.
Well, it's not cheap to do it that way either. You actually have to spend some money, but the results of taking an heirloom that's special, because you can get higher dollar margins for that. So if you like to grow tomato, like I like to grow peppers, so I like to have several peppers. And for years people were worried about cross pollination or blah blah blah. Well, I only feel like that's a problem if you want to harvest the seeds. If you're just growing them, but if you want to, that's how I think you can adapt peppers. That's how, let's face it, they didn't come up with the Carolina Reaper without using another pepper plant, to make it. But yeah, I see what you're saying. Good conversation. That's
a whole other thing too. The peppers, man. I like, holy shit. I just went online. I told you before, I used to do some ghost peppers and some reapers, but it's a different game there, man. I just went online
now.
Yeah, they have crosses on crosses on crosses, and white weepers, Moruga weepers,
and some of these pepper guys got better grow rooms than some of my weed friends.
Oh yeah. Well, exactly. Sure. But the thing is, I tell you what, no matter how hot you seem to make it, it doesn't taste as good as a habanero. I don't care. Across the board. There's sweet peppers.
Which habanero? There's 20 habaneros.
Yeah, there's a bunch of different habaneros.
Oh yeah, there are, but what I'm getting at is they keep trying to make them hotter and hotter, and making them hotter doesn't make them taste better. It just makes them hotter. Well, and again, it's just a sensation. It's not really hotter. It's a sensation. But don't eat that freaking membrane. That's all I'm going to tell you.
So, if you could only have one, if you can only grow pot or you can grow habaneros, which one are you growing?
Well, again, it depends on if I'm screwed in Washington or if I'm in where I'm at. It depends, because habanero has the highest margin, is one of the most expensive peppers that you could sell as a farmer.
How much is it per pound?
Well, I get $3.28 a pound.
$3.28.
Right.
I got $25 a pound fresh for my Buchalokias.
Yeah, but you're in
for 2 years
where it's cold as shit.
It was in Minnesota where it's really
cold as shit. Right, that's even worse. Yeah, that's even worse. Yeah, you would. If I lived up in Minnesota and had habaneros, I don't even can't imagine. But I can't imagine anybody buying them, and that's the problem. I fell in love with peppers, and I found out that the most expensive pepper and the highest margin you could get. I grew poblanos. I've grown all kinds. I've grown them all, the paprikas and the sweet, different Roman sweets and all kinds of different peppers. But the thing was the one that had the biggest margin was the habanero. Unfortunately, I live in an area where it's funny, all the redneck, everybody I know personally will eat the hell out of peppers, but if you try to sell them in the store, nobody eats peppers. So it got to be a beating my head against the wall. I'd be better off growing, microgreens, I think, is actually, Josh is an expert at that, I know. And,
or starts.
Yeah, I mean,
but
that's
pepper
what
starts.
Well, see that what, if you had some nice peppers along with your microgreens to take to that chef, like your business was. So, and I'm sure you did, but you don't need tomatoes so much because he can go to the market and get tomatoes and cucumbers. But if you have ethnic peppers, different ethnic peppers that he can't get at the market, and you have the microgreens, like you said, the best idea I ever heard was Josh's. And I'm sure that's par for the course with people that do it. But Josh's idea was he delivered them a live tray of microgreens. They weren't harvested; they were growing when he took them to the chef. So the chef harvest them at his will. And if you could do the same thing with pepper plants, or tomatoes would be a little bit too much because a pepper plant can grow 40 yards long if it's indeterminate. Pepper plants, so you can have a bush, and if you limit the size of the pot, they'll only grow so big. And let's face it, if you have a kitchen and you want them to grow, all you need is a few peppers to grow so you can harvest them for dinner tonight. And you don't want to use that pepper tomorrow or for another week or two because you want to be fresh and original in your restaurant. So the other like whatever pepper plant it is, if you sold a guy 4 or 5 pepper plants and possibly even went there and like offered a back end service to help him keep them thriving, and possibly even replant them in a situation where it was required, there's value added money right there, where. And again, Josh can address this better than me because he was successful at doing this. I just broke even. So
one thing that was really interesting. I mean, the super hot world is big, and like if you guys don't know, get it. Like just start Googling, but they make concentrates just like we do with cannabis, and so well, they're all sorts of sauces and concentrates. So the guys I was selling it to, they had a Jamaican restaurant, and they were really authentic. I mean, they'd bring in the pimiento or whatever wood from Jamaica to roast their meat, and then they do these wings, and they had wing contests and stuff, and so they'd buy these different concentrates, and they showed me all the different concentrates they'd get of Buccioloquias mostly at the time, and then they'd buy my peppers to bring in the flavor because they'd be fresh and they'd have that fruit flavor that Roger likes that coming out of the habanero.
It's just such a rich. It's like you don't even need to add any other spices if you throw some habanero in sauce.
No, I know exactly what you're saying.
You're done. Just throw the rest of the stuff in there and you're done. It couldn't taste any better than that. But yeah, you're right. You're right about that. In fact, I was recently turned on to somebody that was talking about, which first time I'd seen this in a while, where on a cannabis forum, and they were talking about making a foot balm where they were incorporating oils from peppers, like to make it like similar to like a Bengay or a heat, one of those heat rubs. So it wasn't just a cream like Tommy and was doing, and stuff like that. It was also, it had some heat to it, and again, it's just a sensation. People out there think, well, it burns my mouth. Well, not really. It's really not getting burnt. It's a sensation that you're not used to, and
it won't. It's truly a high of its own caliber. So like at this particular restaurant, I tell this story to friends when I'm goofing around. I go and I'd sell, I don't know what it was, but about $1,000 worth every week of ghost peppers to these guys on Friday. I think I'd go on Thursday, and then I'd sit down at the bar and I'd order some wings, and they'd have wings all set up in these different categories. They'd have Scotch bonnets, they'd have habaneros, they'd have it in the escalating heat scale, and then you'd get to the top where you had the Buccioloquia fresh, and then you get to the triple X, right? That was like the concentrates with the fresh, and I'd buy like 3 of those, like the smallest amount you could, right? And I'd eat one or two of them, and it was like a total trip of an experience. I don't. This is kind of a funny thing to be talking about on this podcast, but I'd go into like, and I'd bring friends along to do this with me, and I'd go into a total like almost hallucinating state where I'm just about to shit and vomit at the same time while I'm at a bar, right? You know, so you're sitting at a bar eating these wings, and your body just like purges. And
well, that's it. That's why
it's like a 15 minute deal, you know. And in the course of the time too, I'll slam a couple beers to like cool it down. And after I'm done, you know, my body starts to, you know, I'm sweating. Like your body literally is just burning.
It's like
and
a sweat ceremony.
Yes,
everything you're purging. You're purging toxins through your fatty tissue, which is why you were tripping and wanting to shit your pants.
Right, but then when you go back to go to the bathroom, wash your hands real good, you know, kind of put some cool water in your face, dry off, come back to the bar, and it's like the most intense adrenaline rush. Like serious, like I'm a mountain climber, a rock climber, you know, and it was just like it would last for hours. This just an intense adrenaline rush where you're just on top of the world for 3 or 4 hours. And capsation, I just was saying all that to say capsation is like, it has a lot of medicinal benefits. It has a lot of, it's got a lot going on there that people are just like kind of starting to explore.
And that's why we're talking about it on this podcast, because this podcast has grown and we're evolving all the time. And we got
to get some pepper growers on here.
You know, this is our favorite night sometimes because it's just us guys that are always, you know, supporting everything every week. And somehow we got on a vegetable thing and, you know, capsation and stuff. But that's pretty interesting. By the way, a lot of people believe a Scotch bonnet and habanero are the same thing. Unless you have.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you look at the picture, it's a Scotch bonnet's a habanero, orange habanero. So, but yeah, and they do have red and yellow, but you know, they black. Yeah, I don't know about all that stuff. I just like the regular orange.
You should hop on Pepper Joe's and look at all the varietals on there. I bought many crosses.
I bought a lot of stuff from Pepper Joe's.
Me too, but you know, 3 years ago when I was getting into the cannabis thing, I think I told you one night when we were chatting, I sifted through 400 Carolina Reaper seeds.
Yeah,
and that they're like, you know, they're not cheap. They're $10 a seed, I think, from him, or at least they were at the time. And so it was
well, not quite. There's most of, well, I was going to bring that up since you thought that before we go on with Pepper Joe's, because but one thing you were saying about the money that you can make if you grow the hot, you know, varieties like Ghost Pepper, Carolina Reaper, the Scorpions, the Trinidads. There's so many of them, and actually Pepper Joe sells the last top from the Carolina Reaper back for the last 10 hottest peppers in the world, you know, by Scoville units, which is speculative. Okay, there's a lot of argument about that, but it's still the peppers are the hotter peppers are hotter. But when you get to 150,000, you know, you're starting to, you know, like split hairs a little. But I bought all that stuff. And around here, I've got friends that'll grow them out and they sell them for $1 a seed. You know?
Oh yeah.
Like they get $1 for a seed, or they might sell a pod, like a pod, you know, which is one pepper. They'll sell what they call a pod. They'll dry them and then just sell somebody
for 75 cents, $1.
For $10, well, $1 or $10. So, well, you get a bunch of seeds out of a pod.
Oh,
but
right.
I literally know somebody that was selling ghost peppers for $1 a seed. You know, well, I couldn't believe it I wouldn't have bought them, but you know.
I wish I had grabbed some of the Scotch bonnet seeds when I was down in Jamaica. There was a couple of them that they were like tree size. I should have grabbed the seeds from them.
Yeah,
oh yeah.
It's an interesting world, and I'd love to talk to some people who geek out on it more, you know. Pepper Joe would be a cool guy to have on, you know.
Yeah, I'll have to invite him. One of the other things I wanted to bring up too for people that are looking to get into the cannabis industry is security. You know, you have to remember that like you're putting yourself in a different risk your family at risk and everyone around you. You know, when you are a cannabis owner, you know, people see you as someone that has lots of cash on hand, and you, right now, at least until the banking's fixed, do have lots of cash on hand. So it's something you have to be very careful about and consider when you're thinking about getting, you know, applying for a license or not. Is that, you know, is changing the way that you live your day-to-day life something you'd consider doing? And, you know, can you keep one eye behind your back at all times, you know, as an owner of a company? And that's something else a lot of people, I've actually talked to people out of the industry, you know, after having that conversation. Okay, no feedback. Mr.
I'm sorry, I was running across the room and I kind of lost track of it, but I thought that was interesting, but I didn't. I wasn't able to come up with something to feedback with you. But
it's just par for the course, you know.
Yep.
Murder Mountain.
Oh yeah, for those of you guys that aren't familiar with the industry, and this doesn't represent the industry, but it sure as hell represents Humboldt. Go watch Murder Mountain. It is a really, really good documentary on what actually goes on in Humboldt County. And
it's a little dramatic. I mean,
well, I don't know, man. Having had my own fair share of bullshit up there, I would say it's pretty par for the course.
You talking about people poaching and people shooting people about over it and stuff like that?
Yeah, people die. There's a lot of people that die. That's real. That's for.
I know. Yeah, I know that, but most people don't realize that either, right? They think of the Emerald Triangle as, you know,
I think it's weed paradise, and it's not.
It's a nightmare over there now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always been, you know. I mean, there's always been a lot of illegal activity going on. Anywhere there's a lot of illegal activity, people tend to get paranoid. And just to give you, like, my mom's family has lived in Redway and Garberville for generations, and so I used to spend all my summers running around that area down there. My brother lived down there with my mom, and so, you know, spent a lot of time down there, and it's. I've also seen the thing, and it's a little dramatic. I will definitely give you that. It's not like, I mean, it's not. It's not like exaggerated. I would say that I would say the way that they produced it and the way they talk about it and the way that they, you know, like, the way that it's produced, it's definitely overdone. But
would you say
there's a lot of truth in it. There's a large element of truth in it.
They're putting decades of violence into 2 hours, right? So it's got to be overstated.
You know? Kind of. I mean, it's a topic that has so many nuances. I think that it's difficult to try and fit it into a documentary because, like, I've talked about this on the podcast before. It's like, it's a very interesting place because you have like two polar opposite communities that end up coexisting. You have like this really sort of like salt of the earth kind of like loggers that are left over from an industry that got killed by regulation in exactly the same way that most of the cannabis industry does, which is timber. You know, you have a lot of the logging community that really sort of coexist with the grower community that showed up, you know, and, you know, obviously a lot of hippies. You know,
well, so the growers want the trees cut down.
Yeah, you get a lot of weird dynamics that end up happening because when the timber industry shut down, you have a lot of people without jobs and looking for things to do, people that need to make money. So, you know, people that on the surface or in public, I should say, you know, are very outspoken against, you know, the hippies and their dirty weed and everything else. Meanwhile, their basement is full of indoor, you know, that they sell to somebody muling it across the country to New York on the regular. So
I can attest to that. I personally witnessed quite a whole Native American tribe working in cahoots with the DEA that have full pass to move weed freely right in front of them. And I watched it happen directly in front of them.
Allegedly.
Right. So you know, so you have the whole native population, which, you know, like that's a whole nother aspect to it, and you have tribal politics getting involved there too, where like, you know, you have the tribe who's growing their own, so then they're helping the law enforcement bust the people that are growing illegally on their land, which is kind of fucked up, you know, but at the same time, you know.
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah, so it's you know, it's kind of, Steve was a lot nicer about it. I guess I'm a little more direct. But it's a difficult, you know, again, so many different nuances, but you get all these different polarized communities that end up coexisting in a very rural and kind of isolated area. You know, it's lots of hills, you know, it's up and down, you know, you have rivers and creeks, and, you know, it's pretty steep, and it's not necessarily mountainous in that you have really tall mountains, but it's just a lot of steep hills essentially. So it's not a lot of altitude change, but it's a lot of, you know, little nooks and crannies and different places where people can hike, guerrilla grows, and, you know, all kinds of different stuff. And so it's not, you know, it's definitely an area where, not like other parts of the state, like, you know, I lived in far northern California in Siskiyou County most of the time with my dad, and around there there's a lot of public land, you can walk around and hunt and fish and do whatever you want without you know, being as concerned and as you would be in the Humboldt area walking across, you know, vast real estates. Eventually you're going to run into a grow, which is more than likely booby trapped, or at least has, you know, security guards around it
with guns.
You know, and all of that has existed all the way back, you know, since the 90s, you know, and a lot of it is just because it's illegal. A lot of people don't understand that it comes with that. Like, if you become a target for criminal organizations that are looking to steal because you can't call the cops, they know you've got large amounts of cash, you know, like a lot of it is just out of self-defense. But obviously you have some of the people like you get in this documentary we were talking about that are, you know, legitimately probably fucking crazy, right? I mean, you know, you definitely get that paranoia, and, you know, you get you know, there's definitely people that have disappeared. Like there's documented evidence of all of that. So, you know, where they went or what happened, I think they take a little bit of that. That's where the drama comes in for me. When you can see it being overproduced is when they start trying to conjure up their own stories about what happened. And so that's the only part for me that gets a little sketchy about the documentary. But overall, there's definitely a lot of truth to it.
Sounds like they've kind of made a Blair Witch Project out of a cannabis thing in Humboldt. I didn't realize at first you were saying about a documentary either. I thought you were talking about a movie about it, you know, but you're saying a documentary. That's the whole different story.
Multi-episode documentary about what really goes down with the Trimigrants and some of the other things that you aren't told publicly that happen in cannabis country. More specific, the Emerald Triangle and Humboldt. But
have you guys
Oregon and Washington
heard the River's Last Chance?
No.
Marty, do you know about that one? You should check it out. It's really cool. It's about the Eel River, and it walks through the history, you know, and kind of like white American civilization in relationship to the Eel River, and it goes, you know, through the logging, through cannabis. It's very interesting to see how, and it brings it right up to present.
And couldn't logging be put right up there with like railroad in a sense? Even though we're being compassionate about loggers, we're talking about people unduly buying large lots of land and harvesting wood from, you know, maybe native or indigenous, you know, Americans, you know, with whether they liked it or not, you know, or land be given to them by a governor, you know, when they were developing the Northwestern territories, you know, back in the day of the gold rush and all that stuff.
Well, that's going to be pretty much everywhere if you want to get technical.
Well, kind of, sort of, but, you know, the West was founded by a bunch of Northeasterners that had money and then went out there, and after they bulldozed the railroad through, they installed their own cronies and whether they be murderers or piece of crap or whatever they were, but somebody that got the job done into being a governor out there. And, and that's a fact. So it sounds to me like the same thing we're talking about with logging is, that's
what this we're
worried about. I mean, we're just talking about a situation. We weren't really judging, but we've gotten to the conversation where I'm not so much judging, but bringing up the fact that the loggers that are worried about the hippies that came in to stop them from cutting down all the trees, and then they grow pot outdoors while the loggers are going indoors, really isn't the point. The point is that the loggers are there making a living doing something that some corporate guy or somebody with a lot of money stole from somebody else back in the day. And for the folks in the hills that lived there from way back when and managed not to get murdered off or had to relocate or go hide up somewhere to keep from being murdered off, now they're fighting it in their own way. But now it's cannabis. So I mean that's my weird,
Sure. Well, that's what this documentary was. It was like Gold Rush, the logging, cannabis, and it was it was from the river's perspective.
Yeah, cool.
And cool. It was very cool. It tells exactly that story of the land and how the land just keeps getting raped and recovering. And then it talks about the salmon and raped and then recovering and then raped and then recovering, and like it's a testament to the power of the life on this planet. I don't know, I'm totally tripping out. Like I'm going deep into biology and stuff with the soil food web stuff, and I'm just like, holy crap, the earth is powerful, it wins. Like even
you got us all
throw a lot of bad shit out of it, this movie kind of like makes you like at the end you're like, yeah, the earth wins.
Tell me about it. It's January and it's been 60 degrees for a week here and raining every freaking day.
I'm just kidding.
No, I mean, I don't want it to be warm. I want it to dry up. I mean, I don't care if it's warm or cold, but normally if I had my greenhouse running, which didn't have heat, my crop ended up, before New Year's, between Christmas and New Year's, every year. I'd keep going, oh, I think I'm going to make it. I'm going to be able to make it. And then bam, it's like 3 days, 28 degrees, bam, everything's dead. Well, all of a sudden, we've had 2 nights that almost got to freezing. We've had 2 frost nights, and it's the 5th of January. It's been 60 degrees for a week, and it's going to be 60 degrees for another week. Again, I'm not really, it doesn't suck because I'm not freezing my butt off. But on the other hand, since the hurricane we had like 3 or 4 months ago, my land has never dried out. I can't get anything done. It's a swamp. And for the first time ever in over 20 years, I've got land out here that I can't do anything out there. It's a mud, if I try to do anything, I'm going to be just creating a mud pit, and I try to leave my yard from getting all tore up. So I can't really drive trucks through, or right now I'd be driving trucks around and pulling trailers, and because I'm dead set on getting everything set up this year and getting back to work and starting aquaponics in some phase, in way, in shape, or form. And instead of being able to do that, I'm stuck in a mud pit. And
growing the swamp, though. When I was down in Jamaica, down near Black River, they were growing everything down there in swamp. It's a whole delta.
Oh yeah, well yeah. But you're all prepared, and it's farmland though. It's not a greenhouse, right? Well, I mean, I'm sure they have greenhouses, but you're talking about an open farm.
Not really. This was all outside. Yeah, it was in a market.
So it's like you're growing sugar cane. I probably could grow the shit out of sugar cane.
Yeah, real similar. It was all around.
Or bamboo.
Either reeds or bamboo, or there's a tall grass there, like a rush, some kind of tropical rush.
I'd actually like to grow bamboo because you can take that and put it everywhere, and do all kind of stuff with that. I mean, if you could use it, for yourself. So, but I mean, it is an invasive sucker.
Bring that up next time Scotty's on. Scotty's got a whole big bamboo farm.
I think we talked about that when he was on before, because I'm really intrigued with bamboo. But it is something you don't mess around. You don't start putting out bamboo and you better be ready to take care of it, because it likes to spread around. Well, I guess there's one species maybe that's not so bad, but You
You know
got
what
to be
I found in Jamaica was how big some of those bamboo varieties. There's a couple of. I didn't realize how many different varieties they are, and some of them get like the size, like they're huge. I mean, it's like a manhole, half the size of a manhole cover. I have to, it's crazy. You feel like you're
That's how they make flooring.
Jurassic Park or something.
That's how they make bamboo flooring, because they have to have those big so they can work it and steam it out and everything to where they can get it flat. And but you can literally you could have bamboo that's only an inch or 2 inches maybe, and just make a walkway.
Oh yeah,
put it together with twine or hemp with hemp twine. Get your bamboo and your hemp, and you can sew everything. You can tie everything together with your hemp, but you could, in fact, you probably could take hemp and make a walkway. But the bamboo, you can just take the bamboo poles themselves. We got a bunch of it down here. A friend of mine's got like a shitload growing all up and down beside his property along power lines, and it's like there for the taking. You can just go and chop it down. But yeah, you could. You have to be industrious, and willing to build your own infrastructure. Again, it's like what we're talking about with regenerative growing, using anything you could think about growing and that has a purpose. So if you wanted to grow bamboo, it has a purpose because you could cut it into walkways. You can use it. I mean, you have to be industrious, and you also have to be handy with tools, also, are willing to fabricate things, or have a mind that allows you to think of ways to use things where other people wouldn't. Or hell, just Google it, and I'm sure that you can find something over in Indonesia and Vietnam where they can show you how to use bamboo. But yeah, it's one of those products that's so hard. And hell, how long does it take to rot? I mean, does it rot? I don't even know if you can rot bamboo. We lost you.
Eventually, yeah.
Eventually, but longer than pine or something, a lot longer than any kind of pine or any kind of crap like that.
So, Mr. Green Jeans, do you have enough quiet to talk or no?
What's that? Oh yeah, I guess it's pretty quiet in here.
You've been quiet most of the episode. How you doing? You were in the class.
Yeah, starting some seeds. Swami sent me a couple of packs of seeds. It was really cool. One of them's open pollinated cherry bomb 2016, and a couple other things. It's amazing. Now I have cherry bomb back again.
So that's one of yours. So you got a 26 out of your own strain back?
Yeah. I haven't had it myself. I haven't had cherry bomb for the last 5 years.
That's
Any
cool.
seeds that germinate. But these I'm gonna start, storing them in the refrigerator and everything properly and everything like I should be. So hopefully they'll last longer. But I already have a couple started, and a few of the other ones he sent me got those started.
That's good news, man. I know you got to love that. That's got to made you real happy when you got those, man.
Sorry, I don't have the packets for show and tell. I didn't even think about that. A nice little male plant in a plastic cup, though. Good example how you can get pollen like that. That's all you need. He's in the water. I don't think he's
not just a rooted clone.
Yeah, I don't even think he's rooted. I just chopped him off the top, just the top of the plant. The rest of it is somewhere back in the other room. But he's enough that he's making flowers, and he's far away. So I can. You can just put this part in the window. You don't have to take the rest of the plant. So the lower part, I put him back under the longer day length, and I'll start regenerating him. In case I want to keep. And this part is all I need. This is all you need for pollen. It's enough.
So what you did was you went ahead and induced flower so you could sex the plant. and then you top it, and that's what you got there. Just because, yeah, okay, so everybody understands. I knew that, but I want to make sure all the kids out there understood.
Another part of it, I rooted it. You know, I made it so I made another cutting as well. But this part I just is in the window because it's in the middle of the winter, you know, so it'll keep on flowering. It's like 12 hours, you know. So all the boys are sitting in the window happily flowering away. But I was just going to say, you don't need to, you know, they don't need to be in big cups or larger. You know, they could be in a small, in a cup like that of water. I mean, he's been here a week, you know, he's perfectly happy dropping pollen. So, you know, easy method. Josh was talking earlier about, you know, everybody getting into breeding and stuff, and it's don't have pollen.
Mr. Green Jeans.
Don't be afraid of pollen.
Green Jeans. Yeah, so you can. I just threw this in a cup. You know, did Mr. Green Jeans. I used Pro Mix, and I put it in a little cup. And here's this been sitting around for. This is like a month and a half old. I've been keeping under. Oh, I'll hold it still. I always tell you guys that's right. I can see it, but you know, you don't need to. You know, you can keep it right in this little cup. And there you go. It's not even all the way full with Pro Mix. It's like 2/3 full. And this has been sitting around for almost 2 months. And that's all it is. And you can top it to take clones or whatever, right? But it'll just sit there until you're ready to put in a bigger pot, and then it'll grow you a few ounces. So, yeah, I love it because I got something else to show you, but I had to show you that, my friend, that, you know, I bought into it. I've always propagated in Rockwool, and I've been highly successful. But after meeting Mr. Green Jeans, I dedicated a whole two grows or generations to the Pro Mix rooted clones in a 16-ounce solo cup. There. All right, I give it back to you, my friend.
No, yeah, that sounds good. What is that one, Steve? What is it?
These are yours still. I actually have some other ones I planted, but they're not ready. They're too far away for me to grab them quickly. This is the back jack and this one.
Wow.
The light I have it under isn't the best, so it's a little bit stretchy, but I have some Spectrum Kings en route right now, so they'll be coming next week probably. They'll probably be coming after I leave for the conference, which would be great because I'm not going to be back until like way fucking later in the month, which sucks, but it's okay. And then this one is okay, my roommate can set the lights up. FCD crossed with WA.
Oh, nice.
I forget which that one is.
Flow Chem Dog. That was from you. Yeah, that's your genetics crossed with White Wizard.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me tell you about what your own plant is.
Well, because I didn't have a male of the Flow Chem Dog. I only got a single female of that one.
Oh, okay.
So I had to cross it with something.
Now here you go. Here's what I do next. I put it into this little 6-inch pot, and this is my veg plant. This is a Super Lemon Haze, and it's almost 2 months old, and it came from the top of another one. See, and I just chopped off when I wanted to. Like, it'll grow till it gets unruly, and like if this one was not flowered in time, I would go ahead and cut the top off of here and reroot it. And then this would just keep getting bushy and bushy and bushy. But yeah, I did this as again in, you know, Pro Mix, a simple way. Like, you know, it's not now Mr. Green G's using the organic compost or something like that, but I'm just using Pro Mix and adding my own nutrients to it. And but the thing is that, you know, we get so carried away with size, and really for a lot of things, especially I'm learning, even though I'm not breeding at this point. And I'm not sure I have any plans to. I respect the hell out of all the guys that do breed, and you know. But the fact is that I've been doing this for a while, like a few months now, where it saved me a lot of space. And on the back end, when I do a plant like this and I top it at the before I flower it, I'm getting these plants that I trim off a lot of this off the bottom to clean it up for aeration and all, and to let the energy get to the top. But not only that, I've now come up by doing this from this small plant where it was vegged here for a long time. I just basically put it in a 5-gallon pot and flower it, and I've got stems that are bigger than that growing up, like 8 stems that are just going to be a solid stacked colas, so it's a really, tell you what, especially with us all having limited growth space, wouldn't you say, with these tents and small spaces, if you could get a bushy plant and not make it so bushy and somehow manipulate it where it wants to grow up towards the light, and you get 8 strong secondary stems that grow into colas, you're going to get a nice yield off that plant, even in smaller pots. And thank you, Mr. Green Jeans, for showing us that a year ago or so. And I've tried it out, man. I'm gonna know if it works or not by trying it, man. And kudos to you, man.
Just the way you can control the watering, you really have a lot of control of water, and so therefore nutrients, and it's it's like semi hydroponic, I feel like, or not hydroponic, because you can obviously do an organic method or a natural way of doing it, but
you like to actually use fish water, so you're saying there's kind of like an aquaponic. It's a ponic. It's a ponic.
Little, they're only. It's only semi aquaponic. I'm just using regular tap water as well. But
I think you call it semi-ponics, since it's semi-hydro and semi-aquaponics. It should be semi-ponics.
Yeah, because I think when a plant gets big on the top and it's root bound on the bottom, it can sit in drainage, can sit in its runoff. And I use really drainy soil. My soil has a lot of sand and stuff in it, so it's almost like I don't know. It's it's easier to flush all things out of it. Like, I guess if I made a mistake, like if I overfed something, it's easy to
flush it out.
Water. Yeah, or I don't even really need to. It just automatically, things like that. It's kind of hard to overfeed it. You know what I mean? Wouldn't really.
I got my roommate this banana plant at the beginning of December. It was on the verge of death at the nursery, and we gave it a bunch of mycorrhizae and cannabis nutrients and some fish water, and this thing's grown 9 new leaves in a month, which is kind of insane for a banana plant. I just wanted to share that, how insane the growth was on this thing.
That was neat. Getting back, so Mr. What I noticed about this too, like those pots that I was showing you, but there's 2 things I wanted to address that Mr. Green Jean said: the watering, and those 6-inch pots that I just showed you, the larger one, I water every 2 to 3 days. I give them about a cup of water a piece, and that's it. And just let them just enough it keeps them live and green and healthy, but not growing. And I pulled a couple out the other day, and I would do that now, except it would make a mess on my floor, and I got enough of a mess. But I actually found out that it was not not very root bound. And after a month and a half, but just giving it, all right, my theory is the fact that if you don't saturate the entire pot, the roots are always going to grow to the water, where the water source of the nutrients are. So if you don't saturate the entire pot, the roots won't go down to the bottom and get super root bound at the bottom. They'll spread out more across the top part of the pot and establish roots there, which I think in turn might be, I don't know, but that's what I'm seeing. I'm not seeing a lot of root boundness. So, but like you said, it cuts down on watering. It's easy to flush, if you need to, but hadn't really had any problem. Biggest thing I have is when I neglect to water them because it's a small pot, and then you guys out there, when you do that and you come back and you think it looks good when you water it and it stands up, and then 3 days later you got yellow leaves, well, that's because they died because you didn't water them in time.
Yeah, in a small pot, they can run out of water really quickly.
Yeah.
If the light's bright, obviously they're going to drink a lot of water. I think it's related to the light. If the light isn't very bright, then they won't use a lot of water. As soon as the light's bright, or in some way they're absorbing a lot, the light is hitting a lot of the leaves, and then they get thirsty and they drink a lot of water. But yeah.
We also, I think your fan can dry it up a little too. If you got too much fan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you can dry it up. And I also
You
find out
shouldn't have a fan.
Oh, you always got to have a fan,
only
but you don't want it to be too drastic. You want to.
I don't believe in direct fan, not on the plants. Maybe circulating the air in the room, but not blowing directly on the plants. Like, for example, if there was a hermaphrodite flower, it should drop the pollen. It should just drop where it is. It shouldn't get it all blown around and everything. Yeah, there should be not enough. If it's possible to get away with, just circulating the air out of the room. Circulating the air in the room is really important, and changing air out of the room, that's very important.
Well, I always felt like blowing a fan, not steady, but oscillating through the undergrowth helps to deter insects, flying insects a little bit too. But I mean, I could be wrong on that.
Ideally, you want above and below the canopy. If you can prune your plants and have a nice
below.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. That's
the pot layer, the layer of the top of your pots and your canopy. If you could have fans blowing through that layer and another set blowing kind of across the top / into that cultivation layer, that can definitely that's your ideal, because remember, VPD is temperature plus humidity plus air movement. Without air movement, it doesn't help it at all.
No.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. You got to have that bottom canopy, under canopy airflow to keep the pests from like lighting and being comfortable. And then you have to have the other top light is to keep the heat. It kind of moves that heat from the light off the top of the canopy. And I know Mr. Green just wanted to say something.
No, I was just going to say also supply CO2, because if the air is not, if you're not exchanging air and moving around the leaves, and the plants are growing really fast, they'll use up all the CO2 really quickly.
Yep, that's another thing. I like to seal the room up and not exchange too much air during the day, and run my CO2. And as soon as that CO2 shuts off, maybe an hour before the lights turn off, have the CO2 shut off, and then you turn your ventilation on and change the air out of the room. And that's the best way to do it.
That's a good point. And to reiterate, Steve phased out a little bit, so I'm gonna caption that a little bit with saying that. I was getting ready to say the same thing. Like Mr. Green was saying, if you want to capture CO2, you can't have your ventilation on all the time. You have to have it off so that the CO2 can build up. The plants can take it, and absorb it. And so you don't. Some people say I run my exhaust all the time. Well, then you have no CO2 buildup. And if you're running CO2, you're just blowing it out your ass. So exactly what Mr. Green Jeans, what Steve just said, is exactly right. You got to allow it to. You really need your heat to build up to the threshold of where it's too hot, and then exhaust it. And it's best if you're running CO2 that you have it time to cut off, so that while it's exhausting, you're not blowing CO2 out your exhaust.
Yeah, you want the CO2 to kick on about an hour before the lights turn on, because you want to build the CO2 level up to 11 or 1200 ppms. And then you want to have the lights come on about an hour after that, and then have the CO2 shut off about an hour beforehand, because the plants don't need additional CO2 for that last hour. You're already at threshold in the room anyway. So there's no reason for you to add more after that. So that's going to help save wasted CO2 a lot.
That's a good point. So you're saying you would just have to dose them once a day?
Well, no, you would dose them, during the day, whenever the lights are on. Remember, they only utilize CO2 when they're committed, making.
Right.
So there's 0 point to having them on at nighttime.
And see, going with that for everybody out there that's maybe a newbie or something, you don't you don't give nutrients, you don't feed plants when the lights are out. You don't need CO2 when the lights are out, because it takes the light and the energy that the light projects onto the plant for the plant to function and photosynthesis to occur, so that can absorb the CO2.
Especially if you're feeding foliar nutrients. I mean, remember the largest diameter is, you got, well, if you've taken my class, you know the answer to this question, which everyone here is either a teacher of the class or has taken the class. But does anyone remember what the optimal temperature or optimal time of day for the maximum diameter of the stomata is? In the class.
I probably missed that part because that would be at the beginning.
It was in the nutrient section. It was the second day.
I don't remember. I should know this too. Thanks a lot.
An hour after the lights. That's when the
Come on.
largest
No,
diameter.
well, it's typical, like any plant, and well, the plant has to absorb X amount of, well, like they used to say in the old days, candle lighter, before it would take up nutrients. And so I should have just said that. An hour, it's that's kind of depends on the light intensity, wouldn't it? Too.
Yeah, but if you're foliar feeding, that's when you to feed nutrients. To get nutrients into that leaf tissue, that's the time to do it. And again, we've talked about this. We've had him on the show. Dinesh from Optic Foliar. In fact, we'll get him back on again here soon.
Oh yeah.
Emerald or Vegas, they all kind of blur together. I think it was in Vegas, if memory serves me right. Anyways, I think we're gonna get it back on the show, but they have a product called Transport by Optic Foliar. That is a really, really, really good. It's an organic wetting agent. It helps those nutrients get through that cell wall and go through both the top and bottom of the leaf and bypass the stomata as far as an entry point.
Yeah, I remember that. We discussed that. I remember discussing that with him, because when he was describing it, we were asking if it was a wetting agent, yeah, that was pretty dumb on me. I guess it's been a couple too many of these right here, but yeah, plants. I was taught when I started hydroponics that you didn't have to, you didn't water them the minute that the sun came up. You had to wait until there was enough light to where the plant was ready to feed. So yeah, that'd be about an hour. So you got me on that one. I look bad on that one. So.
Well, but traditionally people will tell you not to put foliar spray until the lights turn off. But that's actually when the stomata are in the smallest diameter, so you have the hardest time getting a molecule into that stomata. So you're kind of defeating the purpose by doing it with the lights off, is kind of what I'm getting at. The only time you should spray foliars with the lights off is for insects. If you're doing foliars for insect control, that's when you want to spray with the lights are off, because you want to just smother, you don't want those insects active and mobile. You want them to be huddled up for the night, and you want to, nuke them. You know what I mean? So that's, right after the lights turn off with a green headlamp or something like that, that's when you want to spray. Or, right last half an hour of the day, go through and spray right before the lights turn off. That's when you want to do foliar sprays for insects. So that's the difference between, foliar sprays and why you would do those two between it, one versus the other.
And again, because you're trying to catch them in the dark when they're dormant, is what you're saying. And by the way, those green lights are, you can get an excellent green light for that kind of application in an emergency only situation from Spectrum King.
Do they have green ones?
Yes, they definitely do. I talked to Brendan on the show about it. Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm gonna
it's not
see.
recommended to use unless you have to use it. That's the bottom line.
I know that Orr and Brendan have a booth up at the hell's the name of it in Canada? Not the one Josh is doing. Lyft. They're up at Lyft, so may or may not have some coverage from up there. We'll see if I can find my way into Lyft. I'm thinking I might be able to find a way in there. So we'll see. I don't have a ticket right now. I'm speaking at the other conference on weekends, or at least on Friday, so we'll see. If I can't find a way over there on an off hour or something. But yeah, so we'll hear from them again soon. They're really great guys. Again, if you guys aren't familiar with LEDs, please go check, or lighting in general, please go check out the LEDs, the Spectrum King episodes that we've had. They were one of our earlier guests, episode 30 something, and then episode 99 and episode 40 something and episode 60 something, I think, are the different episodes. They've been on at least 4 times now, so, and they just drop so much knowledge every time they're on. They're just a really great bunch of guys. What have you been up to in your garden there, Mr. Green Jeans?
Oh, cool. Let's see, not much. Oh, you know what? I have a Mucuna bean that has gotten really big.
Hell yeah!
Yeah, it doesn't seem to mind the cold either. Another one that I guess is not very deeply rooted, seems to be not growing much. I guess it's too cold. But one of them is growing, growing up. This is up in Los Angeles, up in LA, and it's gotten huge. It's amazing, and it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't seem to mind the cold, which is interesting. So I wonder, when's it gonna flower? It must be.
And not to touch the beans, right? The beans are very okay.
Yeah, cow itch, exactly. It hasn't started, making beans yet or flowers.
Yeah, they got to be 3 or 4 feet long at least before they generally start to produce.
Oh, this thing is like, I don't know. Part of it must be 11 feet long. The way it's twining up this cactus and over some other bushes and everything.
Sure. So I don't know. I don't know if it's photo period or a certain age or what kicks it, but you could try giving it an extra potassium and try to force fruit it. Again, it might just be a photo period or a temperature thing too. There's a lot of those tropical vines. If one of those 2 things is off, it won't flower.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you thought it might be because he said it was cold.
I've only grown Mucuna in the summer.
Yeah, I was, I expected it to be warm. I just planted them just because to plant a few and see if they would germinate, and they did, and this one's doing fine. So,
and for those that aren't aware, Mucuna proensis beans are one of the most healing beans after cannabis, like healing plants after cannabis. The beans have a natural form of HGH, which helps you with healing or muscle building. If you're recovering from surgery, they're great for that. They have a small amount of DMT. Was it up to 0.8%? I think it is DMT, which is on the lower end of stuff. But if you take enough of them, you can definitely have a good time, just orally through sublingual. If you roll them in your teeth, which is my favorite.
Yeah.
And then you also have like a mild painkiller. They have a compound that helps to reduce tumor growth. And directly it like helps your body's immune system tell the difference between tumors and your own immune system by detecting the chemical that they release in order to figure out what's a vein and a blood vessel, and so that for new vein and blood vessel growth, so that your body can tell, hey, that's produced by the tumor and that's an imposter hormone and not the hormone your muscles release to get that same kind of I need more blood. So it helps you give more time when you're fighting, if you're up against, a growth. I mean, that's not medical advice, but that's anecdotal advice, I guess, to cover my ass. And it's a really, really great herb. It makes you feel a little bit better. It makes you a little bit more energy. It's a really, really good. I've been taking it for over 10 years. It really helps too with, if you get if you're a glutard, like I'm a glutard, if you get poison from gluten, you'll absolutely have reactions. Or if you have like a food allergy, you get like a reaction, like the anaphylactic reaction, or like that immune system reaction. It really helps calm that down. I can take the powder from the Mucuna proensis bean powder, and it helps me significantly as far as like negating side effects. So that can be a great way to, at least that's how I use it personally. But it's a really, really great plant. That and moringa would be, some of the other plants I'd highly suggest for people to try growing at home for medicinal purposes, for sure.
Yeah. Yep.
Where do you find seed? For everybody out there, where do you find those seeds you got?
I've always bought mine from India. I generally buy them about a kilo at a time, but I'm eating the seeds a lot. You can plant them, but I eat them usually.
I ordered them from a guy in Australia, and he was really cool. Really cool guy. Was called Fair Dinkum, which is really easy to remember. Fair Dinkum Seeds in Australia, and he had a bunch of other interesting stuff as well.
Cool.
But
We've had a couple of Aussies on those. That'd be cool.
yes, yeah. So and I think that they were expensive, and I've seen like powdered Mucuna for like, I don't know what, like $80 a kilo or something, or $50 a kilo.
I can buy. I generally
Very
buy.
expensive.
I buy the beans between 35 and 50 a kilo.
Yeah, but it seems like it grows pretty easy, I guess, in warm weathers and warm weather and tropics, and it's kind of like a ground cover. It could be a really good ground cover.
Well, Steve,
right?
You're going to have to turn me on to where to get a kilo for that kind, because I definitely live in a freaking warm tropical area, and that'd be kind of cool as hell if I could.
Probably go like crazy in your place.
I have the black seeded variety over the speckled seed variety. The black seeded variety, at least in my experience, has been the more medicinal of the two, as far as medicinal properties. It seems to have more of the substances that we're after.
Well, that goes hand in hand with the darker vegetables have more medicinal qualities. So.
The anthocyanins have a lot of anti-inflammatory compounds. Strictly talking about the exterior, not even talking about the interior of the seed, but the darker the plant, especially the leaf material, if it's red or purple or black, that's anthocyanin production, which is an anti-inflammatory in humans. They actually anthocyanin and phycocyanin, both of those are anti-inflammatories that are in prescription medications. So.
Wow. Seed looks like a little hamburger. I think the one I have, and I think it's the speckled variety. I think are the ones.
You have one to show us?
Speckled ones are fine.
No, unfortunately, I started 3, and I have another 3 left as well that I haven't started yet. I think I think he only gave me 6 for $20 or something, or $10 or.
I'd wait till March.
They were expensive.
I'd wait till March. I'd wait till March or April to germinate them.
Oh, I was planning to do the other ones, but amazingly, this one vine is doing pretty well. I didn't expect it to make it through the winter, but it's Los Angeles. It's not too bad here, so maybe it will make it. We'll see. But yeah, hopefully next year, if I have a supply of the seeds, I can supply you guys with some. So
the first go ahead. The first time I ever grew it in this tiny little garden behind our row home, my ex-girlfriend's house, and it got maybe 3 or 4 hours of sunlight a day, and it grew straight up to the top of the 4-story row home in about 2 or 3 months, and took over the entire rooftop of the row home. It was crazy. That shit grows faster than weed does. It's crazy, almost like bamboo. It just shoots up. And it was this was in like a 7-gallon pot, and this thing was like the size of a house.
Nice.
And it was concrete underneath. It wasn't shooting roots into the ground. That was it.
I think it's a legume also. It's right. So it's bringing its own nitrogen. It's really green. It looks beautiful. And now the shoots are turning red, the tips and everything, and getting beautiful colors and things from the cold weather, but also from probably deep minerals. I bet the roots are getting deep now that the top is so big.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, really cool.
Most of your vines or anything that's like vining and stretching like that has pretty deep roots. At least anything that climbs.
Yeah.
Pretty deep root system.
Yeah.
We've talked about before about purslane and clover both having ridiculously deep root systems as well. So.
Yeah. Yep.
What about
yeah, it's cool.
Anything else going on in your garden, Mr. Green Jeans?
Let's see, that's probably it. Oh yeah, we were getting the giant, man, I don't have any of it to show. That's so terrible. Getting the giant guavas are starting to come in. Big I started well, I have 2 trees back there, but one of them that I started from seed is the Indian guava that makes the gigantic green ones, and they're they make really good jelly. Everyone's getting guavas.
Manda guavas stink like hell when they're overripened on the ground under the tree, though. Holy shit!
Yeah,
we had one in Jamaica where I was living, and man, did that
I love them.
Stink like hell. Like, yeah, it was great to go out there and get them, but the rotted ones that were underneath the tree were just, oh man, it's such a weird alcoholic fermented like guava overpowered.
Yeah, like I know those, but those are the best guavas when they're ripe. Those ones that, that later on smell just terrible rotting on the ground.
Right? It's almost like cheese. A really good one's like barely tolerable to your nose, but damn if it doesn't taste amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Or like what is that? What's the fruit? The terrible smelling one. It's illegal.
Durian.
Yeah, durian. Durian. That's great. I love it. It's delicious.
It's funny. So there's a relative of durian and sweet sop and sour sop called jungle sop, and it looks like a durian, but it doesn't. It's a pleasant custard, super sugary, sweet smelling fruit, and it looks almost identical. Like if you don't really know durians that well, you would see it and think, oh, that's a durian or a jackfruit, and it's that same size, huge. But man, you could sit there and pick out on that for a whole day. It's so good.
Yeah, I love that. We're getting up in Los Angeles, we're getting papayas. There's a couple of papayas. Gosh, I wish I don't have any of it to show. But and also the moringa tree, there's that one is overwintering up there, and it's doing fine. It has like a couple yellow leaves here and there, but it's huge. It's still 20 feet tall.
Can you take some cuts? Because it'll root out.
Yeah, you know what? Auntie is she's experiment. We're trying to root smaller cuttings.
So that we did a ton in Jamaica. I probably did 7 or 8 in Jamaica. So what you do is put them in a media bed with a flood and drain. All you gotta do, straight up, and put them within like an aquarium or even just a low level of organic nutrients, like bottled organic nutrients, like whatever your one of choice, just pour that in there. It'll root like crazy. In Jamaica, I would take them and put them in. We had a whole empty grow bed, and all I would do is take cuttings off the moringa trees, and man, they would root in 2 weeks. Two.
Oh yeah, well, Auntie, she takes the big, but she chops a big wooden part. And she cuts them like 4 or 5 feet long, and but a couple of the smaller ones that she's stuck in the ground, they can root. Right, you can root a much smaller one.
But I've seen tree when they recommended growing trees. I agree. I've seen where the professional tree where they would root something to turn around and either sell or to do a farm. They would do a 3 or 4 foot cutting of tree off the end of a limb, and then they would root They would root it, and the root's pretty easy. I mean, I did it with a willow tree, and I cut because I went and read about it, like 20 years ago, and I cut them about that long, and I just stuck them all in a net pot in a 5-gallon bucket filled with water, and to start off, or I took the net pot out. I used a 5-gallon bucket that had been cut. The top had been cut for a net pot, and just put them down in there, and they rooted naturally just in the well water and the rainwater that we had around here.
For moringa, it doesn't matter too much because moringa will grow 12 to 14 feet in a year. So
that sounds like it roots really easy.
Even if it's a weed clone cutting, I mean, you're looking at, you're still going to have fruit that first.
Yeah, it grows super fast, incredibly fast.
It's like bamboo.
And deeply up.
Insane. It'll grow on bare rock. I've seen it in Jamaica on like bare coral reef rock. Like,
it doesn't need any nutrients.
Yeah,
just sends roots down. so far.
Tolerant. It'll tolerate. I've seen it on the beach in Jamaica, like straight up, like on the beach where it's drinking salt water, partially brackish water.
Wow.
I'm sure,
Wow.
So.
Well, that would have to do with the mycorrhizae fungi, then.
Or it just is a very efficient plant that doesn't need them. Like a coconut tree doesn't need they have mycorrhizal, endomycorrhizal fungi, but they don't need it. They can straight up grow and just salt. They don't give a shit. The same thing with
their coconut tree, the moringa, is that supposedly a saltwater island?
I don't know where moringa is from originally. I think it's African, if memory serves me correct.
I think you're right.
It could be either way. It's brackish, saltwater. You never know. Yeah.
I'll tell you.
What do you think, Mr. Green Jeans, or
where it's from? I think it's from Africa, but I think it's in so many cultures all over the world that people use it. It doesn't surprise me that it's salt tolerant. It's definitely tolerant of the soil we have here, which is pretty alkaline, I think, and our water is really alkaline, and it doesn't seem to mind that too much. I think it doesn't like cold, wet roots in the wintertime. That's why it's cool that when it gets really big, it seems it can, it goes through the winter better. But if you don't let it get really huge, and get deeply rooted, then maybe it doesn't like cold roots.
When you talk about your water is alkaline, are you got city water or a well?
It comes from the Colorado River water. It's probably about 300 parts per million, or high 2s in hardness,
and it's pH of
IPH. It's probably about 50-50 carbonate hardness and halite or salt hardness, I think. Around.
But what would pH be?
Man, it's sometimes like, I think at least 8, maybe 9 sometimes.
Okay, that's why I asked. When you said extremely alkaline, 8 is extremely alkaline.
Couldn't be 9. That's ridiculous, right? But not 8.
It could be. I've had guys come on the forum and say they had some ungodly pHs. Now, it doesn't mean they didn't have a bad meter or something, but 8 sounds like.
I haven't checked it in a long time.
City water 8
scared me last time.
It's hard to say, but 8 is about right.
Moringa is native to Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, and Pakistan. That's where it's from.
Well, check it out. So it's a Kush region kind of thing.
Yeah. It's funny. All these medicinal plants seem to come from the same place.
It's also real nutritional. Like the leaves are really good. they're really good to eat. I mean, they're just they have like even protein in them. The leaves
too. In Jamaica, we would just eat the seeds right out of the pods because they're sweet.
Wow. Yeah.
They're properly ripe. They're sweet. And you can also grind the seeds up into a powder, and they use that as a replacement for like a sugar replacement for diabetics and other people with problems.
I heard they give you diarrhea or something like that. I never tried, but if you eat like 4 or 5 of them or whatever.
No, that's not true because I've eaten over 80 today.
All right. Okay.
I can tell you firsthand, and I definitely. I mean, I have some hardcore digestive issues, and if it was going to affect anybody, it would affect me. So,
but everybody is different, so you never know. You might be the one of the few people, because of your screwed up digestive system, that you could do that, and other people would be shitting their brains out. So,
it's
pods are really
vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C.
Ridiculous.
It's a really good general vitamin plant.
Miracle.
As far as nutrition.
The miracle.
Not only that, it'll extract those vitamins from really poor soils. So you can put this plant in really totally crap soil, and it'll pull those nutrients out of the ground. No other plant will.
Yeah. I think in India they call it the drumstick tree, which I think is. It's funny because the beans get really, hard, and it's perfectly straight, and then you can easily use them. They're good. You can just air drum with them, and like rattles.
You can grind the pods up and make a flour out of them for cooking, You can also feed them. They're great animal feed. If you're just going to harvest the seeds. Great goat, chicken, or cow feed, or pig feed. It's a really, really, really good source for them as well. So it's a really, really good general plant, not only medicinally and for vitamins, but also just for your whole, if you're doing a permaculture setup, it's really a great option. So, I think we'll kind of wrap the show up here. I've been working on a whole bunch of projects. It seems like here at the end of the year, end of last year, beginning of this year, all of a sudden a whole bunch of people got their permits or got close enough to where they're ready to throw down. So I've been swamped with work, which has been awesome. I'm buried up to my eyeballs in aquaponic cannabis projects right now, which is really cool. There's a couple of other cool things cooking up that we'll be making announcements on, hopefully end of March, beginning of April. I have some really cool stuff in the works that we're making public announcements on. We're not going to do that until we have products on retail, which we're not too far off. So that'll be really cool. What else? That's about it. Just working on growing. I got some stuff growing. Be traveling a hell of a lot. We'll be doing some cool episodes. Next week's going to be a really awesome episode. We'll have a whole lot of really cool guests. We'll have Dr. Elaine Ingham. We'll have Jeff Steensland. We'll have myself. We'll have Josh. We'll have Dutch Blooms. We'll have Leighton from Kingdom Aquaponics. We'll have I'm not sure who else is going to be at the house. We'll find out. There's going to be a little bit of a shindig going on. I'm going to be doing the podcast live from that, so it'll be a lot of fun. If you got some questions for some gurus, there's going to be a bunch of them there. And if you ask a question that none of us know, probably isn't, hasn't been researched. So it'll be a lot of fun.
We'll give you a T-shirt if you do that. I promise I'll give you an ILGM T-shirt if you stump the crowd next week.
So that'll be really cool. I have some other cool episodes I'll be doing from Canadian land. I think we're going to go up and visit Mark Emery's place, which is a really cool spot. I've never actually got a chance to go to his whole block. So we'll go up to Cannabis Culture and their smoking lounge and stuff in Vancouver. So that'll be a lot of fun next week. What else we got going on? I have some really cool stuff going on, I think, in the middle of February and again in April and May. I'll be doing some filming in a really freaking cool place that'll be very different than anything you guys have seen before. I assure you that. Where else will we be doing? Yeah, that's about it, at least in the short term. We have a bunch of cool guests on. I have a Blue Labs will be on the show here soon. We have a couple of other cool regenerative growers along with a couple of really cool CBD guys that will be coming on the show here soon as well. I just want to say thank you again to everyone for your continued support. It's really awesome to start another year. I actually looked it up here. We started off this question at the beginning of the episode. It was way back in March of 2016, the very beginning of March of 2016 that Marty and I started the show. And it's really awesome here 3 years later to be with you guys and the community that we've built and all the awesome people that I've managed to interact with and all the even look at the Regenerative Organic Cannabis Conference that started after Josh heard Leighton on the podcast and reached out to him and that spawned the whole thing. I'm not taking credit in any way, shape, or form. Those guys put in a shit ton of work to make that thing happen. But as a pure happenstance, if it wasn't for this show, who knows if that would be a thing right now. So I'm super blessed to have this whole community in my life, and I want to thank all of you for being part of it, and I look forward to another year of having all of you guys be part of my life, and I really appreciate it. So.
Awesome.
Do you guys want to tell everybody how to find you?
greenjeansgarden.com. The real deal. Real Mr. Green Jeans.
Yeah, I like that too.
Not the imposter.
Not the imposter. That's right. Real, just look at him. You can tell he's the original,
Right? He's got gray hair. The other one doesn't.
Yeah.
Bro, he hasn't been alive as long as this one's been growing.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
What about you?
I love growingmarijuana.com. You all know that. And Yeah, we got some irons in the fire we'll be coming up with after the first year. It's a new year. We got some new things going on. I can't wait to open up to them, but I'm not going to do that right now. I can't wait to introduce them. Well, I do want to add to somebody we got coming on, and but we got a blazing hot pastry chef from Massachusetts who is specializing in edibles and stuff through her pastry business. And we'll announce that later on when we get her signed up for the show. I think you'll enjoy it. And she also is a fan and also already knows and incorporates the infused coconut oil kind of method in her medicine too. So it should be a very interesting night to have her on, because we're all interested in that and how to make ourselves feel better organically and without opioids. Down with opioids and Monsanto. Okay, that's me.
And Marty is at AP Meds. And are you there, Marty? I think he stepped out. Marty is at AP Meds, both on Patreon. He's been doing a lot of stuff on Patreon again lately, and on YouTube. So be sure to check him out and support him. And him and I also teach an aquaponic cannabis class. The next one's coming up in February. And I teach a medicinal herb class. The next one's coming up here in the end of January on aquaponics specifically. And so if you're interested in checking out either one of those topics and you're looking for a whole weekend worth of in-depth education specifically on the topic, this is everything you want to know: IPM, nutrients, the whole nine, design. Any questions you've had, we'll walk you through it. We spend about two 8-hour sessions plus extra questions at the end of each day. So however, until you guys are all happy, it's really a wonderful class. The two guys here have taken it and really enjoyed it, and they've spoken for themselves on multiple occasions. There's plenty of other people on the show that are now involved in one way or another that have started off as people from the class. So it's really cool to see the community grow in that way. So if you're interested in more formal training, check that out. You can also check me out over at potentponics.com if you're interested in consulting for aquaponic cannabis, or if you just want to find out more or check out other episodes, you can check us out on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, at Potent Ponics, Weed TV, iHeartRadio, Google Podcast, the Weed Tube. We're on anywhere I can find that'll let us upload. So, be sure to check us out if you're having a hard time finding us. You got plenty of options. So, thanks a lot, everyone. And we'll be back next week with a really freaking cool episode with a whole bunch of cool guests, all jamming out at once. And I think it'll be a really good time. So we'll catch you guys again next week. Take care.
Good night, y'all.